right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second creative conversation that we've had for this exhibition, The Human Spirit. My name is Christine Michael, and I'm honored to be the co-curator of this show with Pak Mulim, who you'll see over there. Hello. Hello,
Hi,
Mulim.
hi.
Hi,
This is Mulim.
from,
Yeah.
from Seoul.
Okay. Yeah.
And we have done this show for the lnKo Center, Chennai. For those of you meeting me for the first time, I had my basic training at NID, but then subsequently to that, I've become an artist, an arts educator, curator, art historian, researcher, and writer, etc. And I'm based here in Delhi. Now, to introduce Mulim Pak, he studied at Hongik University and also the California Institute of Arts, and has participated in both solo and group shows in Japan, Germany, Korea. And he has curated many exhibitions at Seoul, Eindhoven, and also Singapore. As an arts administrator, he has been involved with the Mule Art Space, the Jungu Cultural Foundation, the Seoul Artist Platform, and the Art Space Seoul 13, among others. So thank you, Mulim, for being such a great team member to bring this entire show together. My thanks and deepest appreciation also go to Rati Jaffer of the lnKo Center, Chennai, and her team that have worked very, very hard for us, of Vail, Gail, and also Raghu of Studio RDA. I am very grateful for the support that lnKo Center has also given me personally, as well as the arts over these past few years. Thank you so much. And my thanks and welcome to all our 16 artists who are here with us today for the synergy and the resonance and the energy that they have put into their works. Thanks to Swagata Naidu, who is not only a part of the show, one of the artists that we have, as well as for organizing this entire event. She will be the interlocutor to be posing questions to our artists. So some housekeeping notes. Please keep your audio and cameras off during the presentation. Kindly use the chat to record any observations and questions that you may have, and we will take these up at the end of the presentation. So to start off with, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the sort of curatorial concept and note, and then we'll ask the artists to share their thoughts and sort of processes according to the techniques that they have used. So when you look at the landing page of the exhibition, the first room that you go into, the first online viewing room that you go into, all of the rooms look at the artistic interpretations of the concept of actual resilience of the human spirit, especially post-COVID pandemic, through the mediums of glass and ceramic. Now, we know that both of these materials are transformed through fire into new states of being, and that was the key sort of concept here. So we invited all of the 16 artists to consider what the human spirit and the idea of resilience meant to them through actuating it through their material in the COVID pandemic experience, and to just look at what this might open up for them as creative, as temporal, as material, and as sort of sensorial provocations. We encourage them to examine the metaphor of rejuvenation, of transformation, of fluidity and permeability as attributes of both the mediums of clay and glass through their work. And their styles are also figurative, are abstract, and also natural forms. And you will see this throughout the exhibition. So each of the propositions explored in these rooms grew organically out of the artistic concerns and eventually became the core theme of each of the 6 online viewing rooms. So the first one digs deep into the concept of space between the tangible and the intangible, and focuses on the materiality of place and home, and capturing of images of daily experiences and also memories. Slide change, please, Will. So the second proposition speaks eloquently of the anchoring and the disconnections between nature and man, and the need to recover the right relationship between the two. Next slide, please, Bill. The contemplation and the investigation of a punctuated reality was the impetus for the formation of the third proposition. So here we worked on sort of distorted images of artifacts, of man-made objects, of redundant and broken objects that suggest a collective helplessness and the importance of self-questioning. Next slide, please. Change of slide, please, Vale. The aspirational ray of hope that emerges out of the occasional cracks of luminosity and rays of light is the fourth proposition on the struggle to survive. Next slide, please. And here the key expression of the movement of emotions in a contemplative state is metamorphosis of self. And right, I think, can we go back to the sixth slide? I think okay, so the sixth slide, the last room, explores resilience as a strength and also as a weakness in the search towards a beautiful, precarious coexistence. And it also beckons the audience and sort of encourages them to grasp the positive messages of healing, of growth, and of renewal in these artistic interpretations of courage for the future. So I would like now invite Mulim, please introduce the Korean artists, and we'll go into the next technique, the first technique.
Okay. I'm gonna introduce the Korean artist. First of all, we can show the first slide, please. Yeah. I'm not sure. Taehun, is there?
네, 안녕하세요. Hi.
Hi, can you turn on your camera? Taehun.
Yeah. Now we have a translator.
Right.
And then, can you, June?
Yes,
Yeah.
hello, my name is Chu-eun or Olivia, and I will be translating on behalf of the artist today.
Okay.
So,
Let's start from the Lee Tae-hoon. Okay. Yeah, we can just.
예, 제가
네.
어떻게 해야 될까요? 그 동영상이 나오는 동안 설명을 하면 될까요? 아니면은 질문이?
Christian?
Okay, can we have a change of slide to the next? Yeah. Should we show the films now?
사실 이 동영상은 작업이랑 조금 다른 거라서 사진으로 설명을 했으면 좋겠습니다.
so the artist would prefer to explain with the images instead of the video. So if you would please show the images first.
Okay, the next slide, please.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
예, 시작해 주시죠.
어떤 걸 어떻게 먼저 시작을 해야 될까요? 작업 방법에 대해서 설명을 드리면 될까요?
네, 네, 그렇습니다.
일단 저는 그 블로잉과 연마를 함께 사용을 해서 작업을 합니다.
So first of all, I'll introduce the method of my art. So I use blowing and also the plasma batch to produce my art.
네, 일단은 색 유리를 길게 뽑은 다음에 그걸 일정한 크기로 잘라서 다시 모아서 트위스트 하면서 다시 또 길게 뽑아줍니다.
So I stretch it. I stretch the glass into very long strips, and then I cut it with certain intervals, and then I 그 자른 다음에 뭐라고 하셨죠?
자른 다음에 다시 모아서
네.
다시 트위스트 해가면서 다시 색 유리 선을 뽑아줍니다.
So after I cut it, I collect them again and then twist it to form the final shape.
그거를 레이스 케인이라고 부릅니다.
So this is called lace cane.
그거를 다시 롤업해서 미리 만들어둔 스토프 컵 안에 색깔 스토프 컵 안에 집어 넣어서 불어줍니다.
So and then I roll it up and then put it into a colored stuff cup and then to blow it.
제가 원하는 커다란 구의 형태로 분 다음에
I blow it into a big spherical shape that I want.
윗부분을 커팅해 줍니다.
And then I cut the top part.
그리고 위쪽에 곡선을 그라인더로 연마를 합니다.
And then I polish a curve on the upper part by using a grinder.
작업을 하나는 완성을 하는데 그래서 평균 3일에서 4일 정도가 소요가 됩니다.
So on average, it takes me about 3 to 4 days to complete each work.
이상입니다.
This is it. Thank you.
Okay, let's try next artist. Okay.
Shall we see the films, please? Please, Mulim. Yeah, let's see the films.
It's not working right now.
Sorry, let me repeat that again.
It seems like we can't view the film right now. Is there a technical difficulty?
I think there's just a bit of a lag. If you'll just give it a minute. Yeah, there we are.
Okay.
유리를 커팅할 때는 온도 차를 이용을 해서 커팅을 합니다.
So here you can see how I'm cutting it with fire. So by using the difference in temperature, it's easier to cut it.
가열되는 부분만 뜨겁게 그 토치로 쏘는 부분만 뜨겁게 가열이 되면은 저 부분에 스트레스를 받아서 유리가 깨지게 됩니다.
So the part where it's heated up, it receives stress. So then it's easily broken apart after that.
그래서 두께에 따라서 길게는 1분, 짧게는 30초 내외로 저렇게 유리에 크랙이 갑니다.
So depending on the thickness of the glass, it takes about 30 seconds or a minute to create the fracture.
네, 저렇게 잘라낸 다음에 윗부분의 곡선을 그라인더로 연마를 합니다.
So then you cut the top part off, and then I use the grinder to polish the curve.
저 하얀색 유리 컵이 스토프 컵이라고 불리는 컵입니다.
So this white cup that you see is called a stuff cup.
그리고 준비된 레이스 케인을 저 스토프 컵 안에 집어넣고 크게 구의 형태로 불어냅니다.
And then you take the prepared lace cane into the stuff cup and then blow it into a big sphere.
네, 이거는 이제 케인을 스토프 컵에 찍어서 안쪽에는 라인이 들어가고 겉에는 색깔이 씌워진 상태입니다.
So then for this video, you stick the cane into the stuff cup, and then you can see the lines on the inside and the outside.
혹시 궁금한 질문 있으시면은 대답해 드리겠습니다.
So if any of you have any questions, I would be pleased to answer them.
I think we'll go on to the next blown glass Indian artist, Srila Mukherjee. And I would like to request Srila to please start her presentation. Would you like us to show your film while you're speaking?
Yes, please. Let me just introduce myself first. First of all, thank you all very much. lnKo Center, Rati, Mulim, and Christine. Very honored to be part of this. Like Christine, I am an alumni of NID, which is where I first learned my ceramics. I then went on to Finland, where I worked in ceramics for about 8 or 9 months. And from there, I went to London, where I learned how to blow glass with a gentleman called Anthony Stern, and then moved on to the glass house in London itself. I haven't actually formally learned glass blowing. I learned on the job. So if we could see the film or the work while I'm talking, that would be good.
Yes, the film is on, but it's not, doesn't seem to be moving. So can you just, yeah, there we are.
Okay, so once I came back to India, I set up my own studio in Kolkata, which is where I live. And in those days, we weren't in the position that we are in today, where we could import things. So all my entire studio was built out of through indigenous materials. And since I was the first person in India to actually be setting up a glass studio, it was quite a task. I used cullet initially from the Central Glass and Ceramics Research Institute. Cullet is glass chunks which are re-melted. And being a ceramic, initially a ceramic artist, to use a ceramic student, and then into glass, vessel forms is something that I have always sort of been partial to and enjoy working with. This exhibition where we talk about rejuvenation and resilience, actually sort of apart from COVID, also came out of what happened to us in Kolkata, where we were hit by a super cyclone, just weeks after the initial first wave of the COVID. And it was amazing to see how one day there was total destruction. And then the following day, how everything just started rebuilding. Nature started rebuilding itself, rebuilding herself, and how there was always hope and there was always the resilience to keep going. So basically, that's where all my work has come from.
Okay, so can I now request Swagata, please, to ask some, questions, trigger questions, or tricky questions, whatever you feel they are, Swagata?
I don't think they'll be tricky. Hi, everyone. This is Swagata. And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions, Srila. I've known you for a really long time, and I've always been curious to know, your practice in glass started after, out of interest for glass, or have you practiced other materials, and then you realized that, glass was the one that you really wanted to take forward?
I first came across working glass workers as a child, and the entire process absolutely fascinated me. When I joined NID, there was always talk about a glass studio. That never happened. So glass is something that had always interested me. Having said that, material, actually working with any material, has been something that I've always enjoyed doing, whether it's wool and textiles or even wood. Material is something that has always been at the core of my working life. So it just seemed a natural progression from ceramics to go searching for how I could actually make glass. So yeah, I did explore other materials, but glass was always my primary material.
You've also practiced ceramics, but after you went to other countries, learned glass, came back, and you then continued working with glass.
Yeah,
That's
primarily working with glass. I do dabble in ceramics, but not much.
Mhm. So there's another question. You've been practicing glass as the first glass blower in the country as a studio in a studio practice context, and as a
Yes.
woman artist as well.
Yeah.
What do you see, or how do you see the position of ceramic and glass in this in our country, art in these materials at this point in time?
Ceramics, I think, has come of age today. There are, I mean, I think India is doing brilliantly in ceramics. I feel that glass has a very, very long way to go, even today. And I think that possibly Shishi will back me up on this. Sadly, there is not a single art institute, I'm not including NID in this, but there is not a single art institute that is really teaching glass from start to finish, and it's, you know, and what we can do with it as a material. So I think that glass has a long way to go. We still have just maybe 3-4 glass studios in the country, blown, and I'm talking here specifically of blown glass. 3 or 4 blown glass studios in the country. So I think that we have a very, very long way to go with glass.
I agree. But fortunately, in the last few years, there are a lot of few glass studios which practice blown glass have come up. So that kind of is the it's a light. It's a thing in the right direction.
Shimmer of light in the right direction.
Would
Yes.
like to take that question about how glass is in his country?
혹시 태훈 작가님께서도 앞서 말씀하신 작가분이 말씀하신 게 이제 인도에는 글라스 스튜디오가 몇 개 없고 그 제작 환경이 조금 안 좋다는 말씀이었거든요. 그래서 태훈 작가님께 여쭙는 거는 한국에서는 이런 글라스 워크를 만드는 환경이 어느 정도 형성되어 있는지, 뭐 스튜디오라는 이런 여건이 잘 되어 있는지 이런 걸 궁금해하시는 것 같아요.
I think he's left. Maybe 오정선 작가님 혹시 계시면 좀 답변해 주시겠어요?
So the artist Taehoon might not be present at the moment, so we'll ask instead to the artist Oh Jong-sun if she can reply on behalf.
Thank you.
네, 제가 태훈 작가 대신에 말씀드리겠습니다. 한국에서는 지금 상당히 그 글라스가 어떤 그 전공하는 사람의 그 숫자라든지, 그다음에 어떤 시설적인 면에서라든지, 그리고 어떤 전시, 그리고 또 관객들에게 다가가는 어떤 그 모든 것들이 상당히 그 정말 어떤 다른 분야의 어떤 미술과 견주어서 뒤처지지 않을 정도의 어떤 그런 위치에 있다고 저는 생각을 합니다.
So according to the artist Oh Jong-sun, it is her opinion that the current infrastructure or the environment for producing these glass works is not subservient to is not inferior to other forms of art. In general, she thinks that it's on the same level. So we have a pretty decent environment for producing art.
네, 제가 서울을 제외한 어떤 다른 지방의 학교는 제가 정확하게 알지는 못하는데요. 적어도 서울에만 글라스 전공을 할 수 있는 그 대학교가 한 5군데 있는 걸로 제가 알고 있고요. 그리고 개인적으로 블로잉 스튜디오를 운영하시는 분들은 상당히 많은 숫자가 있는 걸로 알고 있습니다.
So the artist is she's from Seoul, so personally she only knows about the city of Seoul, so this might not be able to include the other regions. But for instance, there is a lot of individual artists who own their own glass studios, and also within Seoul alone there are 5 universities that offer a major about producing glass works. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Christine, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next glass technique, which is fusing and casting. This is Srila's work, which is in the show. So we start with Jung Kwang Min, we go on to Shishir Sahana and Choi Hai Suk. So Mulim, over to you.
Yeah, let's start the Jung Kwang Min.
예,
Showing the new film. He just sent the new one, and that film presented his technique about his work.
Yeah, Vale, can we show the film, please?
안녕하세요. 유리 만다라 작가 정광민입니다.
Hello, my
만다라-
name is Chung Kwang-min. I'm the artist who makes glass mandala.
유리 만다라 작업을 시작했을 때 한국에서는 샌드 만다라 툴을 구할 수가 없어서 작업을 위한 도구를 먼저 만들어 했습니다.
So when I first started working on mandala, I couldn't get the tools in Korea, so I had to make my own tools for work.
전통적인 샌드 만다라 기법인 가루를 쌓아 올리는 것은 만다라 툴에 가루를 넣고 실로 만든 요철 부위를 유리 막대기로 두드려 조금씩 떨어뜨리는 방식입니다.
So the traditional technique for sand mandala is first piling up the powder. You put the powder in a mandala tool, which is called a cone, and you tap into the uneven area made of thread with a glass rod to drop it little by little.
유리가루를 빨아들이는 기법은 생유리 가루를 여러 겹 쌓아 올린 후에 컴파스에 칼을 꽂아 동심원을 그리고 청소기에 꽃가루를 꽂은 후 빨아들이는 방식으로 합니다.
So the method of sucking the powder is completed by stacking several layers of colored glass powder, and then you insert a knife into a compass, drawing a concentric circle, and then insert a cone into the vacuum cleaner, and then suck the powder in.
보통 마블링 기법은 흔히 기름을 이용해 그리지만 가마 작업을 위해서 저는 물 사용을 시도해 봤습니다.
Usually marbling techniques are drawn using oil, but I tried using water for kiln work.
물방울을 뿌리는 기법은 마른 땅에 소나기가 올 때를 떠올려 시도한 겁니다. 완성된 작업은 두께 차이로 인해 백라이팅이 되면 묘한 분위기를 연출합니다.
The technique of spraying water droplets was akin to showers on dry land, so raining on dry land. When the finished work is backlighted, because of the difference in thickness, there is this strange atmosphere that's created.
액션 페인팅 기법은 작은 통에 물과 유리가루를 넣고 뿌리기 직전까지 손목에 회전을 시켜서 유리가루를 가라앉지 않도록 합니다. 2, 3초 정도만 멈춰도 유리가루가 가라앉아서 잘 뿌려지지 않습니다.
The action painting technique is to put the glass powder and water in a small container and rotate it with my wrist until just before spraying to prevent the glass powder from sinking. So even if I stop for 2 to 3 seconds, the glass powder sinks and does not spray well.
유리가루를 깎아내는 기법은 우선 유리판 위에 유리가루를 뿌린 후에 600도 정도로 초벌 구이한 후에 다시 깎아내고서 630도 정도로 재벌해서 완성합니다.
So the process of carving out the glass is first of all, I put it in the kiln for about 600 degrees temperature Celsius. And then the second process of firing is about 630 degrees of Celsius.
저는 해마다 다른 주제를 정해 작업하는 걸 좋아합니다. 작업 과정이 저를 바라보는 명상과도 같기 때문입니다.
I prefer to use different topics for each year because for me the process is like meditation.
주제가 정해지면 다양한 구상과 스케치를 하고 먼저 작업할 것을 고릅니다. 작업하는 과정에서 생각을 정리할 시간이 충분하기 때문에 작업 전 구상은 대강의 흐름 정도만 정하는 편입니다.
So prior to actually starting on my work, I do a prior sketch, but it is only elementary and not very complete because during the process itself, there is a lot of room for further improvement or further development. So the sketch itself is not super complicated.
이상입니다. 감사합니다.
That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Over to Shishir. Where is Shishir?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you there? Yeah,
Yes,
over to
thank
you.
you very much. It is a pleasure to be a part of this exhibition and conversation. I studied painting actually from Kala Bhawan, Shanti Niketan. I did my graduation and master's. But from master degree itself, I got interested in glass painting. So that's how the glass came to me. And since then, there is a lot of travel from glass painting, kind of reverse glass painting, to stained glass, which I learned in London, St. Martin's College of Art and Design. Then I understood the diverse technologies available, and we can explore the medium of glass in various techniques. Then I started exploring it gradually into slumping. I did slumping, stained glass, then fusing, casting. Only thing I didn't do much is blowing. Otherwise, even flame working also I do. So with these lot of diverse techniques, I explore my medium and my concept. That's how I'm going to show how I use it. As Srila Mukherjee rightly said, that in India, we struggle to get very good material and we don't get good tools to work with. And hardly any institutes offer this very interesting medium to explore in terms of fine arts, or even in crafts, or even in daily use purpose. But I started teaching glass in Kala Bhawan, Shanti Niketan in 2014. I teach molding, fusing techniques, and glass flame working. But I could not introduce blowing and casting because running furnace is very difficult. I have made the furnace in Kala Bhawan, but maybe it might take some time to start teaching blowing. And so I will, but I thank to all the Indian artists who are working in glass, because I know how much they struggle to develop their infrastructure, and they make their own tools to be a part of this great challenging medium. I will present my work now, the technology I use, the process, then I will explain how I develop my work, what's happening. Host disabled, so I cannot present. So then please present one by one, I will explain.
Okay, Vail, can you go back to the first slide, please? Yeah.
First one, this one, the top one. So this is a casting technique. I use sand casting and make pieces from clear glass. Then after coming out, I go through various kind of processes or techniques to come into this finishing stage. The second one, I will explain later chronologically the developing process later. And the second one is also mixed with a lot of techniques like fusing, molding, and casting. These three techniques are amalgamated here. And this red color at the middle, this is also conceptualized as a power of woman. I do work with kind of subjectivity that makes me choosing the material, and that makes me choosing the techniques basically. So my techniques and content are, they travel together to express my inner self. And the top one, where I am making sand mold, one can see in the kiln itself. I make sand mold. I don't make pressed mold. I cut out the sand. I make the negative surface on the sand itself. Here, the negative surface is made on the sand. Then when I cast or fuse the glass, the positive surface comes out. So from the negative directly, I work into positive image. So the bottom one can see how I am placing different kind of glass pieces. Mostly I pick up from the garbage and reuse those thrown away glass pieces, and they are very compatible. And this is a challenge for me to find compatible glass. which we do not get in India actually. People say they are compatible, but we do not get proper compatible glass in India. So I pick up these glasses from either I collect from abroad, or when I go to abroad, I make this kind of possibilities in my work. And can I show the next slide, please? Yeah, the top one can see the filled up with clear glasses. Then I fuse it in around 800 to 830 degrees Celsius temperature to fuse it properly and get a proper shape. So students can understand how the fusing technique can be developed in this medium. And here the second one on the top, inside the kiln, glass is now fused, got it shaped. Now the third one on the top, I have taken out from the mold and cleaning it. So glass is fused here, and I kept these all small picked up images from the garbage as it is, because I found that creativity does not get in just for throwing it out from one artist's hand. So I give another life in my own work by picking them and fusing into my own work and using it properly. So here on the bottom left side on me, I am cutting and polishing. So this is another step where I make the piece into my own form and shape, and some areas to be polished because sands and plaster gets stuck. I clean them, polish them, and want to remember that I don't mostly use the clear surface of the glass as we normally see and like it. I use frosted kind of porous and also opaque surface, translucent surface, and transparent surface. All these three surfaces are mixed up in my own work because I use a lot of different techniques, and different technique gives different character of the glass, and that characters actually give me the boost to my expression or content. Here on the third one of the last, I'm just making some small images here, small images for inclusion into the glass, so they get embedded. So then I will show the next slide to explain more about my techniques. Here I'm making small images. Those images we can see here at the middle, that these kind of small images, also I make big large images also for placing inside the glass for inclusion technology, inclusion technique. So that's the process where I get things from fusing to molding, then casting techniques will come. So these three techniques are mixed together in my own work. And the third one on the top, one can see those big piece which is fused, cleaned, polished as required, then placed onto the mold, sand mold, and some area on the left is kept open for casting and inclusion. So this fusing technique, fusing piece will be again attached to the casting body at the bottom. So here, the bottom part on the left, I can show the full image of one glass sculpture. This part is already fused and made. Now seeds at the bottom in old seed series of my artwork, these seeds will go into the glass. How? I will pour clear glass on this area, and this part will remain open. So there is fused, there is molded glass here, and cast glass will get incorporated with this image. Now the middle, I am picking up molten glass from the furnace for casting, and the third at the bottom is the same process of getting clear molten glass, which is almost like honey type of glass that I pick up from the furnace and pour. This is basically soda lime glass, commonly used in any kind of glass industry. So this soda lime glass is preferred because it is commonly used and available. The material is also commonly available everywhere in the country. So next slide, please. Here I am pouring the glass onto the mold. Sometimes I pour outside the furnace kiln and sometimes inside the kiln. Here I am pouring outside the kiln. One can make sand mold outside on the tray, steel tray, SS tray, so that it doesn't get rusted. On the steel tray, one can have plaster mold or sand mold and pour direct clear glass onto the mold. And that tray immediately after it gets little solidified around 650 degrees centigrade in outside temperature, that can go into the kiln again when the kiln temperature is around 600 to 650 degrees centigrade. So here I am placing first pour clear glass onto the mold. Then I'm placing the inclusion object, which is already fused or cast. It can be developed in both ways. Sometimes fusing with different color cullets, I make these pieces. Sometimes I cast with color powder and make these pieces for inclusion. So one layer is at the bottom. This is the second layer of the images, main images. Then the third layer, here I am placing the image. You can see this image should be very hot, around at least 600 degrees centigrade temperature, so that it doesn't get cracked when it is kept over the hot glass, molten hot glass. So again, here I have placed all the images on the top and covered up with clear glass. Here covered up with clear glass so that image goes inside. And again, some sort of bubbles pop up. I clear those bubbles here. And the third, last one also is almost in solidified state. And now ready to move into the kiln for long annealing cycle. Next cycle, please. Here, now it is going inside for annealing cycle. As per the size, as per the complexity of the glasses, the annealing schedule is made. Normally, in my type of work, this kind of work, it takes from 10 days to 28 days to 30 days for annealing cycle inside the kiln. So as the pieces become thicker and complex in form, it takes more time for annealing. And one should know there is annealing schedule, how to come down from solidified state when it starts from 650 degrees centigrade to 500 degrees centigrade for stress point or annealing point, it is called. Then from annealing point to the strain point around 400 degrees centigrade. Then it goes slowly to the room temperature. It takes about, for my kind of work, 15 days to 28 days, 30 days annealing cycle. After that, I take out from the mold. One can see these two pieces, fused, molding and casting, they're all together. Then finally, this is how they come to life. And after a little bit of polishing, finishing, this is how they look like. So the first one, second one, and third one, both are mixed up with three complex techniques of glass fusing, molding, and casting. So this is how I do using various techniques and characters of the glass. And I don't mind leaving my fingerprint, leaving my cutting effects on the glass. I like to show the characters of glass, how the organic material develops into this form from sand to glass and the process. So this is how my works are made and expressed.
Thank you so much, Ishir. That's absolutely delightful about the detail. Now we'll go to Choi. Choi Haisuk Mulim, over to you.
네.
There she is.
네.
Hi, Haisuk.
네, 시작하시죠. 네.
Shall we start the film? Would you like us to start the short film?
동영상을 시작하면 될까요, 작가님?
네, 근데 동영상에 제 작업 과정이 구체적으로 나와 있지는 않아서요.
네.
예, 이미지를 보면서 제 작품 과정에 대해서 설명을 드릴게요. 우선은 이 작업 향수병인데 기존의 향수병을
잠깐 잠시만요. So first of all, because the video does not have a detailed explanation, she will first go through the images and then explain one by one, if that's all right.
이 작품 같은 경우엔 기존의 향수병을 구입을 해서
So for
3D
this, For this piece, I purchased an existing Chanel perfume bottle.
정확히 치수를 재고 2배 정도 큰 사이즈로 3D 프린팅을 했어요.
And then I did the measurements and then enlarged it to 2 or 3 times the scale and then proceeded with 3D printing.
2배 정도 사이즈 키운 그 3D 그 출력물을 가지고 석고 몰드를 제작을 했고요.
Then I produced a plaster mold that was approximately twice the size of the original perfume bottles.
그리고 그 석고 몰드에 왁스를 부어서 왁스로 만들어진 향수병 그 결과물을 가지고 작업을 했어요.
And then I applied wax upon the plaster mold. So then I applied the final touch to produce the work.
그래서 제 작업 주제가 유물이기 때문에 그 왁스 작업에 제가 고의적으로 좀 더 부서진 느낌을 표현을 했습니다.
Because the topic of my work is relics, I intentionally tried to create a more derelict, a broken character.
그래서 그런 다음에 석고 교석을 혼합된 그 몰드를 제작을 해서 유리 캐스팅 작업에.
So then after I made the blended mold, I did the glass casting.
그래서 왼쪽 작업은 하얀색 유리, 탄유리를 잘라서 유리를 녹인 거고요.
So the left work is made by cutting the white glass.
그리고 오른쪽 같은 경우는 회색 유리 덩어리, 이 덩어리 큰 사이즈 유리 덩어리를 가지고 녹인 작업입니다.
So the right one is made by melting a big size glass that was gray in color.
또 꽃은 그 산소가스 토치로 유리를 녹여서 램퍼킹 기법으로 제작이 되었습니다.
So the method of making the flower is oxygen melting with a storage to make the shape.
저희 향수병 작업은 캐스팅과 램퍼킹 기법을 활용한 작업이고요.
캐스팅이라 뭐라고 말씀하셨어요? 다시 한번 말씀해 주시겠어요?
캐스팅 기법과 램퍼킹 기법을 활용한 작업입니다.
So this was made using casting and lamp working method.
네.
네.
이 작업 같은 경우는 유리 가루를 사용하는 바트드 베르 기법을 활용을 한 거고요.
So this technique is called batte de verre, which uses glass.
왼쪽 구두 작업은 유리 가루랑 파우더를 섞어서 이러한 구두의 형태를 만들고 가마에 녹이게 되면은 그 형태대로 죄송해요. 제가 말로 설명을 하면 이해가 좀 안 될 것 같은데 이 구두의 형태를
So the work on the left is made by using the glass and powder. I melted it in the kiln and then made the shape.
오른쪽 같은 경우는 마찬가지로 유리 가루랑 판유리를 사용해서 만든 작업이고요.
So the work on the right is similar. I used glass powder and glass panel.
캐스팅 작업에 비해서 이 작품 같은 경우는 굉장히 두께가 얇고 깨지기 쉬운 작업이에요. 이 이전 작업, 이 사진 말고요.
So compared to the glass casting technique, the glass work made by the batte de verre technique is very thin and fragile.
이 작업 같은 경우는 제가 제작한 작품을 사진을 찍고 실크 스크린 기법으로 유리판에 이미지를 찍은 겁니다.
So these images that you are seeing currently is photographed versions of my work and then printed on silk screen.
이상입니다.
That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to request Swagata to please pose her questions to the casting and fusing technique group. And I'm sure you have a lot to ask them about technology and art and design. So over to you, Swagata.
Thanks, Christine. And absolutely lovely work. These are all the work that all the techniques that we try and introduce at NID to our students. So several of my students who are participants, who are observers here, would take some inspiration from how things have been. I'll go one by one from one artist to the other, starting with Jang Kwang Min. Absolutely beautiful work. And I just want to ask you one question. How long have you been practicing? And how did you come upon mandala as an inspiration? How do you take inspiration and then convert that into artworks?
가장 먼저 질문을 여쭙고 싶은 아티스트는 정광민 작가님인데요. 첫 번째로는 그 글라스 워크를 얼마나 오랫동안 하셨고, 또 두 번째로는 그 글라스 만달라에 대한 영감을 어떻게 얻으셨는지, 그리고 보통 그 작업을 하면서 뭐 평소에도 영감을 어디서 얻으시는지를 궁금해하시네요.
글라스 만다라 작업을 한 건 한 10년 정도 됐고, 처음에 시작하게 된 거는 그 티베트 다큐멘터리에 티베트 샌드 만다라를 하는 걸 보고서 시작하게 됐습니다.
So I've been practicing for 10 years, and my first inspiration to start the sand mandala was actually by watching a documentary about Tibet. During that documentary, I saw the scenes of sand mandala, so that's where I got the initial inspiration.
처음에는 그것을 제 작업의 언어로 삼으려고 생각하진 않았고, 제가 일을 하다가 인간관계에서 받는 스트레스를 한번 해소해보고자 한번 재미삼아 해봤는데 제 성향이 너무 맞아가지고 그 작업을 발전하게 된 계기입니다.
So at first, I didn't really think of it I didn't really connect it to my work as an artist. But then later, as I received a lot of stress from interpersonal relationships, I realized that these mandala might be a good way to connect my experience to art.
작업에 대한 영감은 주로 제 그전에 이제 철학을 했었는데 약간 그게 이제 처음에 철학에서 그런가 작업을 이제 접근하는 방법도 약간 철학적인 질문에 대한 그 이미지화하는 작업 그렇게 시작하고 요즘 하고 있는 작업은 이제 제가 바라보는 관점들 그러니까 제가 뭐 태양을 바라봤을 때 태양을 어떻게 인식하는지에 대한 걸 이미지화해보는 그런 작업들을 하고 있습니다.
So as to my usual inspiration, I have a slight background in philosophy. I used to study it a little bit. So I have a tendency to connect my images to the way I perceive things. So for instance, when I look at the sun, I try to connect the way I perceive the sun to an image, and then I try to portray that in my work.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Jangkwang Min. It's very interesting how you've connected psychology to your interpersonal experiences to an inspiration and eventually made it into an artwork. And that journey, that depth of the richness of your experience shows in the work that you've done. So it's beautiful. Shishir,
hello.
I've been a fan of your work for a really long time, and it's absolutely great to see the extensive process that you go through to be able to give your works. I was actually the first time I looked at your work, and I was trying to understand how many steps would you have taken to arrive at that one large piece, because casted pieces of that size, to create that size and with so many colors and with so many intricate details is hard to achieve. So I just wanted to ask you that how do you kind of so this is how many processes do you put together to create one art piece? Because I can see that it actually goes through different types of techniques, different temperatures, different environments, and even different materials. So how do you kind of conceive that together?
It is difficult to incorporate various techniques in glass. As you all know, that glass is a very complex material. Handling glass is very, very tough because it is involved with scientific, technological, and artistic knowledge together to build one piece of artwork. And I first tried to understand the character of glass, the scientific and chemical nature of the glass. So that took me a long time, since I'm in this field about more than 25 years working in glass. So I found that even though today I break a lot of my pieces due to little calculation of temperature differences, little mistake of the process I use. So it is very difficult to use 3-4 techniques. So first I use, as I have shown, that fuse technique, because I find that my subject, when I work with the organic material, and also the subject which is very close to the nature, close to the earth, then I should have a character of glass very close to the nature, as it looks like stone, as it looks like silica or powder silica or clay or maybe granite or marble. So from that character, actually, we develop the melting process into glass. So basically silica comes from quartz. So that character also I would love to incorporate in my glass, so that people can understand how that fusing technology gives a different kind of character, gives opacity in the glass, translucency in the glass. Again, when I mix molding form, different forms within the glass, embedded inside the glass, so that gives a different notion, different philosophy, that there are some seeds growing within the nature. So it's kind of seeing through the glass, and that is possible if I use only clear glass. So here is a subjectivity concerned to the technology. If I cannot use clear glass in that part, I cannot show things within. So it cannot be possible in stone, bronze casting, or any other metal casting. It is only possible in glass. So I would like to say to my students that use the material. Why do you want to use it? Think it first. It is not that substitute of stone. It is not a substitute of wood. It is not a substitute of any other material. When I use glass, I have to understand this has different kind of characters. Those characters should be incorporated or meaningfully adjusted or embedded within the concept of the subjectivity that I am going to express. So that's how my techniques are developed and incorporated within one piece of artwork, like fusing and casting and molding pieces within the glass. But one should understand that fusing is very difficult when we use different colored glasses. Students should understand that compatibility is a kind of issue that one has to struggle entire life if you do not have very good compatible glasses around you. It is not in America, it is not in Europe or in Korea, China, Japan. You go to the glass showroom, glass shop, and you see the showcases available with the compatible glasses. You just pick up red, blue, green, yellow, and brown and melt them together. You will get very good different kind of results. This is India. So we need to struggle to get compatible glasses. Even in even I searched in Firozabad, we do not get very good compatible glasses. They said, yes, sir, ye leke jaiye, compatible hai. But once you come home, melt them together, they will crack apart. So it is very difficult to use compatible colored glasses. So be careful while melting. You first taste it, whether those available sheet glasses in the market. There are some sheet glasses like blue, green, brown, black, used in the windows. They can be compatible, but get it tested first, then use for various kind of results, and you will get magnificent colored effects within one piece of glass. Otherwise, glass powders are not available in India. We have to get it imported, and that may not be compatible with our glass. So this is a big struggle to using this kind of techniques in one piece of artwork. That is why it takes about a month or more than 45 days to complete from fusing techniques to casting process, because every techniques in the annealing takes long time. And again, incorporating them together takes more time. So this is how I use 3 techniques in my one piece of glass artwork, Sogataji.
Thank you, Shishir. On a lighter note, did you break any pieces before you come to you could create this one piece or your art pieces, or were they in the first?
When I started, there is a big story, because in India I could not find anybody who can show me the issue of annealing. I thought, "Arey, melt karo, thanda karo," but it is not like that. So there is a process of annealing which I did not understand. When I learned in St. Martin's College, I learned on the stained glass and fusing, and very thin glass fusing together or slumping does not really take any risk and does not get involved with any risk of breaking, because thin glasses, you just melt it and switch it off. There is no problem within the kiln itself. Naturally, it gets cooled and there is no harm. But when your piece becomes more than 1 inch thick, then one has to be very careful about annealing process. Otherwise, things will break. So initially, there are so many nights I could not sleep. I just thought, why it is breaking? Why it is breaking? Every piece was broken. About 15-20 pieces I just broke. Then I wrote to my teachers in London. They suggested me how to go through the technical process. Gradually, through the trial and error, I developed this technique. But still, when I go more bigger, larger and more larger, I break every time. I still learn through my mistake, learn through my lack of knowledge in this technology. Still, I am enriching myself while practicing myself within this form of art.
Thank you so much, Ashir. It's quite amazing it's admirable how you fever and were resourceful enough to start working with the material, be honest to the behavior and the personality of that material, and eventually come up with some gorgeous work. And last question to Joy. Very lovely work. And what is amazing about your work is also the way you've described your process. It uses some contemporary processes in the first part of the entire process, where you used 3D printing and you've created models using new technology, and then eventually come to the traditional ways of working with material. My question to you, and it's really good, lovely. My question to you is, how do you take inspiration from everyday life? Because that's what is represented in your work.
Oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat the name of the artist that you were addressing one more time?
It's Choi Ae-suk.
Okay, thank you. 그 최혜숙 작가님께 여쭙고 싶은 거는 이제 그 먼저 코멘트 드리고 싶은 거는 이제 좀 컨템포러리한 느낌의 프로세스가 되게 인상적이었고, 또 마지막에 언급하신 그 사진으로 찍으면서 이제 또 오디션 그 추가적으로 이제 새로운 기술을 통하여 그 작품 과정을 하는 게 인상적이었다고 합니다. 그 여쭙고 싶은 것은 이제 일상생활에서 영감을 어떻게 받으시는지에 관한 거거든요. 그래서 그 부분에 대해서 대답해 주시면 감사할 것 같습니다. 최혜숙 작가님 혹시 계신가요?
네. 음소거를 했네요, 제가. 네. 저는 작품의 소재가 일상 물건이잖아요. 일상 물건인데 굉장히 상징적인 의미를 갖고 있는 가방이나 하의를 가지고 작품을 소재로 하기 때문에 저는 작업을 하기 전에 우선 제 일상 을 먼저 관찰을 하고 작업을 시작을 해요. 제 주변의 일상. 네.
So as you have seen, the object of my work is everyday things such as high heels and bags. So prior to the working process, I first look at my daily life. So I think my inspirations come mainly from my everyday life. 혹시 추가적으로 더 말씀하시고 싶은 거 있으신가요? 그 약간 뭐 그 여성들이 뭐 허영과 욕망 이러한 부분에 대해서도 말씀해 주시면 흥미로울 것 같기는 해요.
일단 작업이 명품들 이미지들이 많이 있어서 그것과
네.
작업이 지금 부서지는 이미지랑 그런 거를 좀 연계해서 말씀해 주시면 좋을 것 같으네요.
이거는 굉장히 가방이라는 게 실용적인 물건이잖아요. 실용적인 물건인데 어떠한 그 브랜드가 가지는 그 상징적인 것 때문에 지금 시대에서 살고 있는 어떻게 보면은 특정일 수도 있는데 모두가 그런 건 아니고 대부분 제 생각인데 대부분이라면은 거의 그러한 로망을 가지고 있잖아요. 로망을 가지고 있는데 저는 이게 아주 먼 미래에 지금 우리가 살고 있는 시대를 바라봤을 때 우리가 쓰고 있는 그러한 굉장히 실용적인 물건이 실용적인 거를 떠나서 어떻게 보면은 본인의 정체성을 표현할 수도 있고, 그래서 그런 물건들은 저는 그냥 가방과 구두 그리고 지금 전시하고 있는 향수병을 대표 소재로 생각을 했어요. 생각을 해서 이런 물건이 먼 미래에서 낡고 부서지게 되잖아요. 어떻게 보면 유물이 어떻게 보면은 가장 특징적인 게 낡고 부서진 느낌인데 저는 최대한 그 물건 그 소재에서 최대한 유물의 느낌을 표현하기 위해서 뚫려 있거나 아니면은 산화가 돼서 금속 같은 느낌이 나게끔 그렇게 작품으로 표현하고 있어요.
So to elaborate upon that, so for instance, bags that we carry are supposed to be a practical item, right? But due to the symbolic luxury of some branded companies, these expensive bags and perfumes, etc., have become sort of an object of fantasy and desire for most of Korean women. So the artist then wondered to herself, what if a distant observer in the far future, like 100 or hundreds of years from now, can observe modern society and look at the so-called luxurious bags or items that were once supposed to be practical, and how they've kind of been transformed or denatured to express not only practicality, but the wearer's own identity. She thought that would be very interesting. So that's why she sought out to present these items as old relics. If they become worn out and broken down, then the ones the notions of luxury and expensiveness that they once carried will be broken down as well. So she thought this might be an interesting approach to take.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And now if we can move on to the next group of 3 artists. We start with Oh Jung-sun. Now, all these 3 artists look at glass and mixed media, as well as a combination of structures with installations, etc. So we'll start with Jung-sun.
오정선 작가님 작품 소개해 주시면 될 것 같아요.
마이크 켜주세요.
일단 저기 작업 사진 나오는 거에 대해서 제가 간단하게 그냥 직접 과정만 설명하고 나머지 전반적인 그 제 작업에 관한 이야기는 통역 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
네.
네. Using lamp working method for this work, using lamp working method, I directly attach the melting colored glass rod at the tip of stainless steel wire into the shape of water drops. The stainless steel wire gives each piece has tension. The work is composed of numerous small glass drops, making a union shape. 제 작업은 사람들의 시각과 그것이 어떠한 차이로 작용되는지에 대한 관찰의 결과입니다.
So my work is about the difference in perception between people and how that is played out in everyday life.
일상에서 내가 만나는 순간들과 대상들이 모두 나의 작업에 영감을 줍니다.
So both the moments and objects that I encounter in my daily life inspire my work.
같은 것을 보거나 비슷한 경험을 하더라도 각자가 가진 시각에 따라 매우 다른 것으로 간주되고 해석되기 때문입니다.
This is because even if people look at the same thing or go through similar experiences, those are considered and interpreted very differently according to the time that they have.
일상을 당연한 것으로 받아들일 때와 마치 여행자의 시선으로 내가 만나는 것들을 바라볼 때 늘 옆에 있었던 것들이 새로운 의미로 다가올 수 있는 경험을 제 작업을 통해 관객들에게 알려주고자 합니다.
So when I take daily life for granted versus when I look at the things I meet from the perspective of a wanderer or a traveler, the experience is different. So I have a new sense of this experience. So I wanted to inform the audience of this difference in perception and experiences, that the things that have always been next to me can come in a new way or new sense through my work.
예를 들자면 공간을 가르는 철망 울타리가 왜 한국과 인도 그리고 다른 나라에서조차 같은 형태를 띠고 있는지에 대한 의문을 가져보는 것과 그것을 당연한 시각으로 바라보는 것의 차이라고 할 수 있을 것 같습니다.
So to give an example, it's like the difference between the chain link fences that divide the space. Even if it's essentially the same form, in every country, it is a little bit different.
우리가 늘상 만나는 펜스는 야외에서 울타리의 역할을 하는 것이지만 그것이 가진 어떻게 보면 당연한 패턴을 조금만 바꿔보면 그것이 우리의 생활 공간을 멋스럽게 만들어줄 인테리어 장식이 될 수도 있다는 것을 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
So the fence that we see always serves as an outdoors installment, but if we give just a little change to its natural pattern, it might be used as an interior decoration that will make our living space a little bit more elegant and interesting.
이것은 사실 제 작업은 아니고 그 네덜란드 작가의 작업을 제가 예시로 들은 것입니다.
So the example that I gave is not my own work, but the work of a Dutch artist.
어떠한 시각으로 보느냐에 따라서 단순히 형태의 변화뿐만 아니라 그것이 가진 의미의 변화까지도 이루어질 수 있다는 예시를 말씀드리고 싶었습니다.
So I wanted to illustrate that according to the way you view things, not only the form changes, but also there is a change in meaning as well.
제가 핸드폰에 그냥 저장해둔 사진인데 보여드려도 되나요?
There is a particular picture that I want to show. It is saved on my cell phone. Would it be possible to show everybody?
I guess if you hold it up to your screen, we might be able to see it.
그 화면에다가
If you hold
핸드폰
it up like that.
네, 이것이 우리가 늘상 보는 펜스의 모습입니다.
조금 안
보이시나요?
보이는 것 같아요. 너무 밝게 보여가지고.
말씀을 하시면서 보여줘야 돼요.
이거는 지금 보이시죠?
조금
이것도 안 보이시나요?
작게 보이긴 해요. 네, 보입니다.
Yeah, better.
네, 이것이 펜스의 그 안에 그 들어가는 디자인을 조금 바꾼 펜스의 형태입니다.
So this work is actually made from those fences that we see in daily life on the roads.
그래서 이것이 그 안의 형태가 어떤 그 우리가 뜨개질에서 보는 레이스의 그 모습을 띠게 함으로써 밖에서만 볼 수 있었던 펜스를 우리 집 안으로 들어올 수 있는 어떤 그런 의미의 변화까지도 만들어 주었습니다.
So if you look closely, the patterns kind of look like lace patterns that you might sew or stitch onto a piece of cloth. So it has a double meaning that what was originally used outdoors has now become part of indoors.
네, 여기까지입니다.
This is it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much. And now we'll move on to our very own Swagata, who will present her work. And then we've got Studio Classic.
Thank you so much, Christine. My work cannot be called as just mine. I am basically an architect who has eventually, I've been trained as a ceramic and glass designer at NID, but I have not practiced ceramics and glass as a studio practitioner. However, I teach it from experience of learning it at NID and then now eventually disseminating it. However, as part of projects that we do at NID, we have we've been collaborating and working extensively for the last couple of decades with this glass artisan community, which is in a small town called Firozabad in India, which is very close to Agra. This town has cluster of glass flamework artisans who practice different types or different styles of flamework. Some of them work with solid rods and some of them work with hollow rods. I have been fortunate enough to do a project with them, and I've eventually collaborated with them for art practice. So while I have ideas and basic skills of working with material and eventually assembling them to create a display, they have a very good skill of creating forms. And each one of them have different types of form languages. So some of them work a lot or extensively with floral forms, floral or animal forms. Some of them work with blown hollow objects. Some of them create marbles, large glass marbles with color in them. And that's how I have worked with 4 different people, 4 different glass artists, artisans who practice 4 different things. Several of these things have been assembled together. So while individually different pieces were made, like you can see here in the video right now, this was the first piece that I started working on. It was kind of an abstract, imitating the struggles of a human and that of a tree in who go through inhospitable conditions, but they continue to struggle and they continue to try and live, and they eventually get a chance to shoot. So that was the inspiration of this first piece, and this was in collaboration with a glass artisan called Papuya. He's a glass blower. He's a traditional glass blower, and one of my somebody who's been coming to NID for a really long time. This person that you see here is called Rajesh Ji. He's also a glass flamework artisan, absolutely amazing with lathe blown glass, where he uses hollow glass pieces, glass pipes, and blows them into forms. If you could go back to the slide where the artworks are, I'll be able to tell a little more about it. Yeah, here. So the tree here that you see symbolizes the banyan tree of India, which is also a symbol of really long life, something which is resilient to all kinds of temperatures, all kinds of environmental conditions. And this has been created by assembly. So like I said, most of my art pieces are actually an assembly of different small pieces which have come together. This banyan tree has been made using 300 or 350 pieces to create this one art piece. Again, these were made by 2 different glass artisans. So my artwork is kind of a testimony of collaboration between thinkers and makers, people who work in the domain of design and people who practice craft in their communities. And that collaboration is what you see as my art here. That's it. Christine.
Thank you so much, Vakata. Now over to Studio Classic. All right, Vinita, Manoj.
Yeah, thank you,
you.
Christine. Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. Manoj and we work together at Studio Classic. We are the co-founders at Studio Classic. And I will briefly talk to you about the process and techniques we follow to create our works. We work by taking inspiration from our surroundings, nature, and most of it is with insects. They form these central characters of our story. And for like the making of one insect, it is a combination of glass elements and metal work. Glass works we create with the artisans of Purdalnagar, which is a village in Uttar Pradesh. In this village, we 2 different techniques, mainly 2 different techniques of glass bead making are practiced. One is on furnace and the other one is lamp working. Sadly, very few artisans are now working on lamp. The craft is languishing, and due to demands and market connect in the national scenario, the lamp work practice still continues to happen at Purdalnagar. Like you saw in the video, the metal working part we do at the studio. It begins with, actually the story begins with studying an entire the structure and anatomy of an insect, and then breaking down the form into various elements, and figuring out like what assigning the glass elements and metal elements that has to be built. So for glass works, we sort of develop these plaster POP models, which are then used to create molds and profiles in the village, and then they are used to make the glass parts. And for metalworking, we use sheet glass, we use wires, metal wires, bend them, form shapes through hammering, and then sort of do solder work, join them together, and then assemble glass and metal parts together to get these insects. So the image that you see here, for example, to make the one wing of this dragonfly would mean having metal wire, cutting them into some 200 sections to get the fine veins of the wing, and then soldering each piece together to get a detailed wing of the dragonfly. So yeah, the next thing is also like getting all these elements together and then creating the visuals that we have imagined, and for that I mean that forms an important aspect for artworks. We sort of have an image or our image that we work on those structures and then we complete them. So for this one with ants on the left, it is called Phoenix, and these are the artwork for the human spirit. We have sort of these are based on reflections of our journey, on our personal journey, and also as reflections or observations made around us during the time of during this time of COVID crisis that we were going through. So during the second wave, we observed that there were these traumatic images making rounds, making news of total collapse of infrastructure, no oxygen in hospitals, and no burial spaces and cremation grounds. And that sort of it is like those imageries have taken to our imaginations, and that is how this artwork has been made. And the spirit of resilience, how you sort of come over the ashes of your own losses. And while on the other side is the Atlas, who is like bogged down by the weight of existence and the daily fights, the daily struggles, and still how it shows resilience and continues to fly. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Vinita. And over to Swagata to ask, I'm afraid we are sort of running short of time because we've only just finished the glass artists and not as yet come as far as the clay artists. But if you can ask a quick question, Swagata.
Yeah, okay. So to begin with, absolutely lovely work, Ojang-soon and Vinita. I've had a chance to get your work in detail, and the scale that you have been able to capture is absolutely amazing. My question is to Ojang-soon. What is the journey that you take as an artist from conceiving an idea to making, displaying it in a gallery?
그 오정선 작가님께 질문이 하나 있는데, 어떠한 아이디어를 처음 떠올릴 때랑 이거를 완성본으로 디스플레이를 할 때까지 이 과정에 대해서 설명해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
아까 사실 비디오 보면서 설명을 약간 드리긴 했는데요. 제가 이제 대부분의 작업들을 제 일상에서 만나는 순간이랑 사건들, 사람들 이런 것들로부터 영감을 얻습니다.
So I kind of introduced it earlier, but most of my inspirations are from my daily life, the people, the moments, and the objects that I encounter.
제가 아까 예시로 보여드렸던 어떤 그 울타리의 그 사진 그 작업처럼 어떻게 보면 너무 당연한 일상이고 당연한 것들이지만 그것을 어떤 시각으로 바라보냐에 따라서 그것이 새롭게 해석이 될 수 있는 것들에 대한 작업을 보여주고 있습니다.
So like the fence that I showed earlier on my phone, I want to show that depending on the way we view things, some things can change its original meaning or purpose.
제가 즐겨 쓰는 단어로서 여행자의 시선이라는 그 단어를 즐겨 쓰는데요. 우리가 여행을 가서 어떻게 보면은 그냥 일상에 해당되는 그냥 평범한 것들을 바라보지만 내가 입장이 달라졌을 때 그것들이 나에게 하나하나 새롭게 그 받아들여지는 경험, 그런 것들을 떠올리면서 여행자의 시선으로서 그 저희 주변을 바라보고 다시 해석하는 어떤 그런 경험들을 전달하고 있습니다.
So one of my favorite expressions that I use a lot is having the eyes of a traveler. So I want to emphasize the experience of how ordinary things that we might take for granted can convey a new sense or a new feeling when we have the eyes of a traveler.
저는 조각을 먼저 전공을 했고 그 다음에 유리를 전공한 덕에 다양한 재료를 다뤄본 경험들을 가지고 있습니다.
I originally majored first in sculpture and then glass, so I have experience in dealing with lots of different materials.
그 경험은 제가 일상에서 발견한 흥미로운 순간들을 시각화하는 데 많은 도움을 줍니다.
This diverse experience that I have helps me to visualize any interesting situation or phenomenon that I encounter in daily life and to make it into an image.
그래서 어떠한 상황이나 이미지를 시각화할 때 그것을 어떻게 하면 가장 효과적으로 표현할 수 있는지에 대한 생각이 재료의 선택과 그 다음에 표현의 형식, 예를 들면 설치, 드로잉, 입체, 영상이 될 것인지를 결정하고 작업을 진행하고 있습니다.
So when I visualize a situation or an image, I determine the material and form, such as installation or drawing or 3D or video, that can most effectively express the image that I want to convey. And then I proceed with the work.
네, 이상입니다.
Thank you so much. So now we're going to go on to Ree and Sook, who does this amazing work with slip casting and hand building. So Ree, yeah.
마이크 켜주세요. 네.
들리시죠 이제?
네.
저도 그러니까 동영상에서 보여지겠지만 수집된 여러 가지 유닛들을 석고 몰드로 갖고 있습니다. 저한테 수집되는 형태들은 저 역시도 일상에서 얻을 수 있는 형태들입니다.
So as is shown in the video, I have several units that are collected as gypsum molds. So likewise, I also get inspired from these forms that are found in everyday life.
그런데 조금 다른 점이 있다면 저는 이게 매우 개인적인 형태들입니다. 그러니까 여러 사람과 공감할 수 있기 위해서 아니면 무언가를 구체적으로 표현하기 위해서 수집하는 것은 아닙니다.
But one main difference from the previous work is that my forms are very personal. They are not originally intended to kind of convey a common experience or form empathy.
그러니까 제 유닛에서 보여지는 가장 많은 질문을 받는 것이 동물들인데요. 동물들은 저에게 그냥 그 동물 자체가 아니라 상징하는 의미를 갖고 있기 때문에 수집하는 것입니다. 그것이 사람일 수도 있고 아니면 제가 어떤 걸 표현하기 위해서 감정을 표현하기에 가장 좋은 유니트가 되기 때문입니다.
So one of the most commonly asked questions about my work is what do these animals mean in my work? The animals in my work are very symbolic. It can mean, it can convey humans, it can convey an experience or an emotion.
그 밖의 일상에서 수집하는 유닛들은 제가 일기를 쓰는 것처럼 어떤 형태를 제가 깎아서 몰드를 만든다거나 아니면 어떠한 물건을 그대로 직접 뜬다거나 이런 식으로 유닛들을 수집해 오고 있습니다.
So for the units that I collect from my daily life, it's like a diary. I collect these different forms. Sometimes I directly imitate a form that I encounter.
저는 그래서 이 유닛들을 가지고 어떤 전시나 작업의 프로젝트가 결정이 되면 가장 먼저 생각하는 것이 용도입니다.
So once I have these units and once I am contacted for a specific exhibition or a project, the first thing I think about is purpose.
용도를 생각한다는 것은 제 작품을 사용하게 되는 사용자거나 소유하게 되는 소유자들과 어떻게 소통할지에 대한 도구로 생각하기 때문입니다.
The reason why I think about the purpose is I think of my work as a tool to communicate with either the person who uses my work or the person who buys my work.
그 작업이 어떻게 감성적으로 아름답게 실내로 들어와서 그 사람들과 함께 공유할 수 있을지에 대한 생각이 가장 중요합니다. 이 과정에서 제 작업의 형태와 용도가 결정됩니다.
The most important thing is how the work is aesthetically pleasing and carried into the interior atmosphere. So during this process, the form and purpose of my work is determined.
그리고 저는 스케치를 따로 하지는 않는 편입니다.
And I don't do sketches separately.
작업의 스토리를 구성하는 것은 일단은 저 개인의 당시의 나의 심리와 환경 그리고 현재 나의 시간을 표현하는 방식을 즉흥적으로 사용할 수 있기 때문입니다.
The reason why is because the story of my work is a way of expressing my current experienced time, such as my psychology and my environment at that time.
저는 공예에서 쓰임의 구분을 작가의 생각이 60%, 사용자의 생각이 40%라는, 그러니까 40%라는 생각을 담아 완성하는 것이라고 생각하고 있습니다.
So personally, I think that the distinction of usage in crafts is 60% the artist and 40% the user.
따라서 예술을 생활에서 즐기고 사용자의 감각을 절대적으로 존중하려고 그 공간을 남겨두는 편입니다.
So I try to respect the user or the buyer's sensibility for them to enjoy the art in their real life.
제가 질문지를 미리 보았는데요. 디자인과 공예의 교차점에 대한 부분의 영역이 있는데 조금 설명을 드릴 수 있을 것 같습니다. 이것이 제 작업의 방향성과 맞다고 생각합니다. 일치되는 부분이 있다고 생각합니다.
So I looked at the question list prior to today's meeting, and one of them was about the intersection of design and crafts, if I remember correctly. And I feel like this is a very crucial topic that ties directly with my works. So I want to elaborate a little bit on that.
저의 경험을 토대로 내린 결론은 모든 예술 영역에서의 교차점의 키워드는 소통의 관계, 소통의 방식이라고 생각합니다.
So the conclusion based on my experience is that the keyword of the intersection in all art is relationship and method of communication.
굉장히 주관적인 저의 개인적인 생각이지만 아트의 영역의 순수 예술에서 영역에서의 작가의 개념은 그 작업의 100% 이상 표현되어야 된다고 생각합니다.
So this is my very subjective and personal opinion, but I believe that in the field of art, so for instance, fine art, the artist's concept or belief should be expressed more than 100% in the work.
그리고 디자인의 영역에서는 디자이너와 소비자의 개념이 40대 60 정도의 비율을 갖고 진행된다고 생각합니다.
However, on the contrary, in the area of design, I believe that the notions or the concepts of the designer versus the consumer should be about 40 to 60%, 40% to 60% ratio.
반면 공예는 반대로 작가와 소유자의 개념이 60대 40, 작가의 비율이 60 정도 된다고 퍼센트를 갖고 있다고 생각합니다.
And on the contrary, for crafts and sculpture, I believe the ratio between artist and the owner should be about 60 to 40.
이것이 바로 소통의 관계 방식에서 그 작업이 어떻게 완성되어 가는가에 대한 관점이라고 생각하고 있습니다.
So in other words, I think the intersection is formed depending on how the relationship of communication is formed.
디자인과 공예는 소비자의 욕구를 감상이 아닌 행위를 통해서 충족시켜 줄 수 있는 영역이라고 생각합니다.
I think that design and craft are areas that can satisfy the needs of the consumer through actions, not appreciation.
디자인은 불특정 다수의 사람들의 욕망을 채워야 하고 또 혹은 그들을 리드해 나가야 합니다.
Design must satisfy the desires of an unspecified number of people and also to lead them.
이는 어떤 데이터에 기반을 해야 반드시 데이터에 기반을 해야 하며 다수와의 협업으로 통해 결정되어야 합니다.
This is not just random. It must be based on data, a certain set of data, and also should be determined through collaboration with the majority, with a lot of agents.
반면 공예는 어떠한 작가와 어떠한 소비자가 보이지 않는 협업을 통해 결정되는 작업이라고 생각하는 편입니다.
On the other hand, craft is an art that is determined through an invisible collaboration between the artist and the consumer.
매우 주관적인 감성의 소규모 협업이라고 할 수 있습니다.
So this is very small and very personal collaboration.
작품을 구상할 때 제 생각을 어떻게 하면 사람들과 가까이 가서 소통할 수 있을까를 항상 염두에 두는 것이 저의 공예에 대한 생각이고.
So my philosophy is that when I plan a work, I think about how to get close to the people and communicate with them.
나를 일방적으로 보여주기보다는 서로를 보고 작업하는 방식을 저는 좋아합니다.
So it's not a one-way expression. It's not just showing me unilaterally. It's looking at each other mutually and devising a work.
그래서 저는 이러한 개념이 현대 공예의 쓰임의 영역이라고 생각하고 있습니다.
So I think this concept summarizes the usage of modern crafts.
이상입니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rian Suk. I'm so glad you picked up the question or picked up the area where we're trying to understand what is the correlation between art, craft, and industry, and also how there is a possibility of being able to collaborate between each of them, how they're different from each of them, and how in a very interesting way you've talked about how in percentages the ownership or ownership of different stakeholders takes place. So that's quite amazing, and it's quite interesting how you've used hand building techniques and mass producible techniques together to create these really large scale, very relatable art pieces. So due to lack of time, we may have to move on to the next section. However, if time permits, I really would want to come back to you and talk to you more. Thanks so much. Christine?
Oh, I think Christine's having some problem. Could you please take a moment so that the audio system is having some technical issues.
Okay. So
Let's start to Lee Jae-jun. Maybe we can go on, right?
yeah, please.
안녕하세요. 이재준 작가입니다.
Hello, my name is Lee Jae-jun.
저는 먼저 작품 제작의 주안점과 주된 작품 표현 기법인 폴딩의 사용 의미에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다.
Sorry. 다시 한 번 말씀해 주시겠어요?
저는 먼저 작품 제작의 주안점과 작품의 주된 표현 기법인 폴딩에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다.
So I'll first talk about my main focus of making the work and also the method.
제 작업은 인체 형상의 작업과 그다음 세라믹 파사드 작업의 두 가지 형태로 나눠볼 수 있습니다.
안 들렸는데 다시 한 번만 말씀해 주시겠어요?
제 작업은 인체 형상의 조형 작업과 세라믹 파사드 작업의 두 가지 형태로 나눠볼 수 있습니다.
So my works fall under two main categories. First of all, human sculpture, a human body sculpture, and second of all, ceramic facade.
인체 형상의 경우는 인간의 형상을 표현하는 것을 기본으로 합니다.
So in the case of human body shape work, first of all, the main focus is to express the shape of the human body.
인체 형상은 사람들로 하여금 자연스럽게 연민과 동질성을 느끼게 하고 오랜 역사를 통해 예술적 창조 본능으로서 사용되어 왔습니다.
So human figures have always made people feel sort of compassion and homogeneity and have been used as an instinct for artistic creation throughout history.
또한 자신을 모방한 형상은 언어, 행동과 마찬가지로 그의 생각을 타인에게 전달하는 기능을 내재하게 됩니다.
Also, a form that imitates oneself, like language and behavior, has the ability to convey one's own thoughts to other people.
전달하고자 하는 저의 작품의 메시지는 인간 중심주의가 만들어낸 현대 물질 문명 속에서 파괴되어 버린 자연과 인간과의 관계에 대해 새로운 인식의 틀을 제시하는 것입니다.
So the message that I want to convey is to present a new framework of awareness and of perception regarding the relationship between humans and nature, which I believe has been destroyed in the modern materialistic civilization that is heavily centered on humans.
제 작품의 인간의 형상들은 현대인의 모습으로 자연의 수호자 같은 모습을 나타내며
So the human figures in my works appear in the form of guardians of nature.
보호받아야 할 자연 또는 공존해야 할 자연의 상징으로서는 개, 새, 이런 인도 내의 동물들로 표현하고 있습니다.
And the symbols of nature that must be protected or nature that should coexist are expressed via animals such as dogs and birds.
이러한 의미로 제작된 인간 형상과 자연의 상징물들은 각각의 관계를 형성하는데 이를 통해 내면의 주제의식을 표현하고 있습니다.
So the human figures and the symbols of nature produced in this sense form a relationship with each other. And through this, I try to express our inner subject consciousness.
이제 테크닉에 대한 이야기인데요. 저는 성형 방법에 있어서는 주로 폴링 기법을 통해 작업의 구체적 형상을 표현하고 있습니다.
So now I'm going to talk about my method. So in the molding method, I focus on expressing the specific shape of the work through coiling technique and by highlighting the matière generated through the accumulation of clay. So I try to naturally record the work process along with the physical expression of soil.
색감의 경우는 1260도로 2차 소성, 페라 시질라타 채색 후 2차로 1060도로 산화 소성합니다.
그 다시 한번 말씀해 주시겠어요?
네, 색감의 경우 1260도로 1차 소성, 페라 시질라타, 예.
So for the expression of colors, The first firing is under 1200 degrees Celsius.
1160도로 2차 소성. 그 다음에 테라실라타 치세프 1060도로 2차 소성입니다.
So and then is 1260 degrees and finally 1060 degrees Celsius.
대지를 연상시키는 붉은색 테라시셀레타를 주로 사용하는데 이는 온화한 표정의 친근감 있는 형태와 함께 자연 그리고 자연 속의 인간, 자연으로서의 인간의 모습에 접근하고자 했습니다.
So for colors, I mainly use red, which reminds us of the earth, to convey the friendly form of the gentleness and the appearance of nature, and also humans within nature and humans as nature.
박무림 저 큐레이터님 잠깐 제가 보내준 화면이 준비가 안 됐나 본데 확인 부탁드릴게요.
There is any new film? Can you show about Daejun? Just send it 1 hour ago.
네, 준비하는 동안에 계속 말씀드리겠습니다. 제작된 현상들은 대형의 인물상 또는 그를 위한 모델링들로서 실외 공간에 설치하는 것을 목적으로 하는데요.
The produced shapes are large figures or modeling, which aim to be installed in an outdoor space.
인간과 사회 안에서 자연이 갖는 의미를 복원하려는 새로운 세계관에 관한 작품의 내용적 측면을 개방된 공간에 발표함으로써
So by presenting the content of the work regarding a new worldview to restore the meaning of restore the significance of nature to humans and society in an open space.
대중과 예술을 연결시키는 공공미술로서의 문화적 기능과 함께 현대 사회가 외면하고 있는 자연 환경에 대해 보다 적극적인 자세로 발언하고자 합니다.
I try to speak more actively and more candidly about the natural environment that modern society is turning away from. Also, the cultural function of connecting art with the public.
두 번째, 세라믹 파사드 작업의 경우 역시 자연이라는 큰 테마를 갖고 있으며 자연의 소재물, 예를 들어 물, 바람, 태양, 달, 별, 나무 등으로부터 추상적 이미지를 추출하고 그것을 기하학적 구조로 디자인합니다.
Now I'm gonna talk about the ceramic facade. My ceramic facade works also have a general theme of nature, extracting abstract images from natural materials such as water, wind, sun, moon, and stars, and trees, and I design them in a geometric structure.
많은 경우 기하학적 구조로 디자인하는데 저희 작품이 설치되는 장소가 대부분 서울 등 대도시의 건축물 내외부입니다.
So in most cases, it's designed with a geometric shape or structure. And most of the sites or places where my works are installed are within and also outside of the buildings in large cities such as Seoul.
현대 건축물들은 매우 모던하게 디자인되며 높은 완성도의 마감 재료들은 거친 질감의 석비질 점토보다 포슬린 재료가 이들과의 조화에 있어서 적합하다고 판단되었기 때문입니다.
This is because modern buildings look very sophisticated and modern, and high quality finishing materials are more suitable and compatible with modern buildings than rough stoneware.
또한 프로젝트의 규모가 큰 경우가 많아서 이러한 포슬린 재료의 경우 기계적 생산 체제를 활용할 수가 있어서 대량 생산에 있어 훨씬 용이합니다.
In addition, the projects that are commissioned are often large scale. So these porcelain materials are much easier for mass production as they can utilize the mechanical production system.
또 하나 중요한 이유는 한국이 사계절을 가지고 있어 특히나 겨울철 외부 설치의 경우 동파가 안 되는 세라믹 재질이기 때문입니다.
Another important reason for this is that Korea has four distinct seasons. So especially when installed outside in the winter, when it's very, very cold, the ceramic, we have to make sure that it does not freeze.
그리고 주된 작품 표현 기법인 코일링의 사용 의미에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다.
Now I'll talk about the meaning or the significance of the use of coiling, which is my main technique.
저는 손을 통한 물성의 강조를 하는 편인데요.
So I use the hand to express or emphasize the property of the matter.
최근의 작품에서는 가구성을 통한 물성의 표현 정도는 초창기보다 더 강조되고 있습니다.
In my recent works, the degree of expression of the physical properties through plasticity is more emphasized than my earlier works.
대학원 재학 당시에 사실성을 바탕으로 둔 인체 표현 작품을 제작한 시기가 있었습니다.
So when I was in graduate school, there was a time when I produced works that expressed the human body based on realism.
그러나 인체의 사실적 비례와 골격과 근육의 세밀한 표현 등은 오히려 작품을 지극히 정직하고 평범하게 만드는 깨달았습니다.
But then soon I realized that expressing the realistic proportion of the human body and detailed expression of skeleton and the muscles made my work very normal and straightforward.
콜링 기법을 통한 작품 제작은 튼튼하고 어떠한 형태의 인체 표현도 가능하게 하였지만 작가의 의지가 100% 반영되는 나머지 어떠한 우연성도 기대하기 어렵게 만들기도 합니다.
The production of works using coiling techniques make it strong and also possible to express any form of the human body. But the artist's will is reflected entirely, like 100%. So then it is very difficult to expect any coincidence or accidents.
여백이 없는 빡빡한 동양 하나 갖다고 할까요? 개인적 소견이지만 여백이라는 것은 평면뿐만 아니라 입체에서도 작품을 형성하는 중요한 요소라고 생각합니다.
It is like a very uptight oriental painting without any empty space. In my personal opinion, I think blank space is a very important factor in making works, not only in the plan, but also in 3 dimensions.
현상적 여백이든 관념적 여백이든 그것은 작품의 깊이를 더하고 감상자에게 더 다양한 사고를 하게 합니다.
So whether it is a blank space that is represented in terms of a phenomenon or ideology, it adds depth to the work and it compels the viewers to think more actively and diversely.
저는 작가의 조형 의지가 정직하게 담긴 코일링 기법에 흙의 물성을 강조함으로써 우연적 형태를 통한 여백의 미를 표현하고자 하였습니다.
So I would like to express the meaning of this notion of empty space, blank space or margin through accidental form, which results from the physical properties of soil in a coiling technique that honestly contains the artist's will for sculpture.
그리고 코일링 기법은 작용과 반작용의 과정이라고 할 수 있겠는데요.
The coiling technique is also like the process of action and reaction.
사실 흙의 물성을 강조하는 것은 흙을 에스키스로 다루거나 테라코타 작업을 하는 조각가들에 의해 많이 시도되어 왔습니다.
So many sculptors have actually tried to express the physicality of the soil, such as through esquisse or terracotta.
그다지 특별할 것도 없을 법하지만 사실 작품의 내부를 비운 채 성형하는 코일링 기법에서의 물성의 표현과 속이 꽉 찬 채 덧붙이는 소조 기법에서 그것은 엄연히 다르다고 생각합니다.
At first you might think it's not very special, but in fact, it's very different from the expression of the expression of physical properties of the soil through the coiling technique is very different from using the addition technique, which is adding the soil while the inside is completely filled up.
소조 기법에서의 물성의 표현은 오로지 외부에서 내부로의 압력에 의해서 형성이 되지만 많은 도예가들이 즐겨 쓰고 있는 코일링 기법은 외부 공간과 내부 공간에서 동시적으로 일어나는 작용과 반작용으로 인해 상이 형성이 됩니다.
So the technique that I mentioned earlier is formed, the expression of the physicality of the soil is formed mainly by pressure that is applied from the external surface to the internal. But then on the other hand, the coiling technique that I use, as well as many other artists, it involves a simultaneous action and reaction that involves both the outer and inner spaces.
이로 인해 나타나는 표면의 물성은 좀 더 부드럽고 외부와 내부의 손가락의 압력 차이에 따라 다양한 높낮이와 유연적 형태가 나타납니다.
So then as a result, the physical property of the surface is a little bit smoother, and also there is a variety of different heights and accidental forms that appear due to the pressure difference between the fingers.
이것이 한 단씩 쌓이고 반복되어 올라가면서 본인의 작품은 유연성을 가미한 복잡한 마티리얼을 가지게 됩니다.
So then these kind of accidental elements accumulate over time, and then my work has a complex matière with coincidence.
본인의 이러한 작용과 반작용의 행위와 그 과정은 또한 지구에서 인간이 존재할 수 있는 까닭이 자연의 외계학과 인간의 내계학이 서로 동등하기 때문인 것처럼 자연과 인간 역시 아름답게 조화를 이루어야만 올바른 관계로 공존할 수 있음을 의미합니다.
So then this process can be kind of connected to my theme, which is so like the action and reaction that is formed by nature's external pressure and humans' internal pressure. These two types of pressure must be equal. So likewise, in our own world, in reality, nature and humans can coexist in the right relationship only when we are beautifully harmonized.
네, 제 작품에 대한 소개 여기까지 하고요. 그다음 미리 질문지를 하나 받아봤는데 제 작업과 조금 연관성이 있는 것 같아서 산업 또는 다른 분야와의 예술 제작에서의 협력의 범위는 무엇입니까? 이 질문에 대한 답변을 조금 준비해봤습니다.
So this was a brief introduction of my work, and now I'm gonna head on over to answering some of the questions. So first of all, I'll address the question regarding the scope of collaboration in art making with industry or other disciplines.
현대에 있어서 많은 예술 분야에서 타 분야와의 협력이 진행되고 있음을 볼 수 있습니다.
So today we see lots of collaboration between art and other fields that have been taking place.
가까운 곳에서는 예술의 타 장르 간의 협업으로부터 완전히 다른 새로운 과학 이론, 새로운 기술, 그리고 개인 예술가와 광고회사, 대기업과와의 협업을 통한 작품들도 심심찮게 볼 수 있습니다.
So some of very nearby common examples can be new scientific theories or technologies, or a collaboration with individual artists, advertising companies, and also large corporations. These types of collaborations are completely different from collaboration between other genres of art.
저는 그 협력의 범위는 한계가 없으며 다만 여기서 중요한 것은 작가의 마음가짐이라고 생각합니다.
I think there is no limit to the scope of collaboration, but what's important here is the artist's mindset.
보통 우리 공예가들은 모든 작품을 손수 자신의 손을 통해서만 만들어야 한다는 일종의 강박관념이 있기도 합니다.
Usually, craftsmen, artists that create craft works have kind of obsession that they have to make all of their works through their own hands.
더불어 공예 작품은 어떠해야 한다는 사회적 편견도 존재하는 것 같습니다.
Also, there seems to be a certain social prejudice or preconception in regards to how certain sculptural pieces should be like.
그러나 현대에 있어서는 공예가 하나의 기능적 기술이 아닌 예술로 인정받고 있습니다.
However, in modern times, sculpture and craft are recognized as an art, not just a functional skill.
장인 정신이 전통을 계승하고 작품의 완성도를 높이는 데는 필수적인 요소지만 거기에만 함몰되어 있다면 새로운 전통은 나올 수 없다고 생각합니다.
So, of course, meticulous craftsmanship is an essential factor in inheriting tradition and enhancing the degree of completion of the work. But if you get too involved, or if you get too stuck around it, then no new tradition can come out.
예술은 단대 여러 요소를 반영합니다.
Art reflects many elements of our time.
새로운 재료와 새로운 기술이 나왔다면 몇몇의 진취적인 예술가들은 이러한 신기술과 현재의 사회, 과학, 문화적 요소들을 자신의 작품에 적극적으로 반영합니다.
So with the advent of new materials and new technologies, some progressive artists reflect these new tendencies and technologies and current socio-cultural scientific elements in their works. In fact, you naturally, almost without thinking, permeate your work with it.
아니 사실은 자신도 모르게 자연스럽게 자신의 작품에 스며들게 되는지도 모르죠.
So the artists, even without knowing it themselves, imbue their own philosophy or thinking into their work.
저는 세라믹이라는 공예 장르에서 출발했지만 조각과 건축이라는 타장르, 건축가와 기업가 등과의 협업을 통해 작은 공간을 점유하는 것이 아닌 퍼블릭한 공간에 설치함으로써 저희 작품이 갖는 메시지를 더 많은 대중에게 전달하고 있습니다.
So I started with ceramic, but through collaboration with other genres of sculpture and architecture, I am delivering the message of my work to the public by installing it in a public and open space, rather than just occupying a small private space.
감사합니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jejun. It's fantastic. And of course, we love to see your work. Moving on to Madhur Sen now. I think she has another appointment. So we'll do Madhur and then Triti. Yes. Over to you, Madhur.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and it's been such an awesome session. Okay, so I will not take much time because I think we are far ahead of our given time. Okay, so I will just say that I'm a sculptor from Delhi College of Arts. I've been working with all kinds of mediums like bronze and plaster and wax and everything. I fell in love with clay. The potter's wheel came to my college on my third year. And the introduction of the potter's wheel, I could inculcate that aspect also in my work, using all the other elements of sculpting and modeling. My inspiration comes from day-to-day life. It can strike me, my mundane life happening around me. When I'm driving, I see people sitting around, the daily, I am always been inspired by the daily wages, the laborers who work around. My work has been inspired by those invisible section of our society, who work with their hands and who works with their residents, and they may not get what they deserve. So I try to capture their soul, their work, and I get my inspiration. It could be films, it could be movies, it could be a song. Like one of the series is like Jim Morrison's Riders on the Storm. That lyrics, that song just gives me a very vivid visual of, someone going against all odds. Sometimes I feel myself going against all odds and trying to be somewhere. So, and then when I have that vision in my mind, and then I come to my studio and my clay, which is my friend and confidant and, understands the most, it understands my soul, and I can pour my soul into clay and who imbibes everything. But again, clay gives you anchoring that slow down, can't take me for granted. It has its own limitations like every other material. So when I have a vision, whether it's an animal form or a human form, I sometimes use that, like the clay modeling, the whole chunk and then scoop out, or I take newspaper and make the whole newspaper and tie it with rope and make a whole sculpture and then use slab method or coil method and make my sculpture. I like to keep my strokes, my work. I like to have the spontaneity, the strokes, the moment I felt when I got inspired listening to a music or seeing a movie or seeing a situation, and to carry that back to my studio. And I sometimes are very impatient to get that form right on my table, but clay centers me, potter's wheel centers me, and helps me, calm me down and make it happen. But the journey from the vision in my mind to build, I sketch like crazy from the 2D to 3D, even the maquettes which I make, it's very quick. But then the final thing to the firing for, 2 firings, I fire to 1280 degrees. I use oxides to rub my sculptures to give the raw feel, to get the soul, the feeling, what I want. And then to the exhibition hall, it's a huge journey. There are a lot of things, lot of elements come in, but I imbibe everything, and that's how I want to tell my story. And I hope I keep on working and keep on giving my animals. These animals have a different story. I wish I could have a more time to describe this. This rabbit has changed my life. Was my pet for 10 years. Studied the form. I sketched the form only when she was 9 years old that I started making it. They are hollow inside. They are actually slabs with which I sculpt, and I give a very rough look. I want to keep the moment I'm making. I want to put the soul of my animals. I learned a lot. I think humans have to learn a lot from the animal world too. And the sculpture again here is made from a chunk, and then I hollow it out. I cut it from the center and I take out the clay, and then I joined it again. And this is how I have visions to make huge, big landscape. I'm inspired by Henry Moore and Anish Kapoor and Rhoda, but the reality is my skill size, my studio, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And one day I will do landscape sculptures. Thank you so much for having me here, all of you. Any questions? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Madhur. We'll probably go to the next person and then maybe we'll come back. Would that be okay?
That way. I'm rushing because I'm tired of time right now. Thank you all so much. Thanks. Over to Tripti.
Wow, really. Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Kitty. The work I have entered for this exhibition.
Over to you, please.
Yes. Oh, hi. How are you? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hello. How are you? Talking about materials as a sculptor, it's the way I look at material is everybody thinks they look at material differently, and I feel I look at it differently too. The first thing is I'm addressing human issues, so I started with earth and clay many decades ago, and the work in my current exhibition that I have given for this show is there are two parts to it. One part is the modeling part, which is made with composite clay, which I'll come back to technically, and the meaning of the technical preference. And the second part is adding or the juxtapositioning of natural elements related to that particular work. Say, for instance, the work in the first room, which is referencing the association of the homeland, which is an installation. Or this work that you're looking at, which is this is a later work where I've no, this is not this work, the first work. I can speak to whichever one you put it to. It doesn't matter because I'm only talking about the material used, and every work is different. In this particular work, it's identity of place, and the base you see is on board. It's with gesso, and it's the land, the earth from my agricultural fields that I grow my own work, my crops and eat indigenous vegetables. So the earth is from there. So it's called identity of place because of that. And the piece in the center you see is just folded slab of ceramic, plain white stoneware body, fire to stoneware, which I make my own clay. This is the only work you see in this exhibition that is made with a basic stoneware body. The other works in this exhibition are made with composite clay, which is again earth mixed from various parts of the country, specifically for a reason of identifying and using materials that are only indigenous and not to do with a kind of a fad of either this porcelain or this, that, or the other. So my work essentially materialism is very important to understand the reference and symbolism of particular material and and what it transfers through the material use and process. It adds to the meaning of what I want, or the dialogue. It adds to the dialogue that I want to convey in making the object or making the human reference figure, juxtaposing it with the raw earth from the land, and trying to create, a kind of a dialogue with that unique freshness or particular use of material and a particular meaning of that material, adding to the work that I'm making also. So this duality is what I'm dealing with in these works in different ways. Either if I'm using rice husk or rice seed, or I'm using in the work that is on the poster, which is called "You Have to Keep This Water in Your Home," instructed my mother. This is a very, you could say it's very rare. It's kind of a very personal thing that most mothers give a little copper sealed vessel of Ganges water to their daughters when they move out of home. And there is also a ritual that once you pass away, once you sort of, you break open that seal, and wherever you are, you put that water in the mouth. So in effect, you're joining your ancestors whose ashes were interred in the Ganges 2 centuries of evolution or whatever. So these sort of material references in use I like to put as allegories in my contemporary scene and in my contemporary use of it, and also tying it up to not a ritualistic reason why these rituals exist in India, but there's actually a more deeper meaning related to the earth and the evolution and the process that we as humans live on it and we pass through it, and the whole cycle of it is so, for me, it's so well represented by the materials that represent us as humans, which is the earth and the fire and the water and going back to it. So basically, yes, I do use materials only for what they mean, not because they're there. So that is a very important part of my material choosing and selecting and using. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tripti, Lee Jae-jun, and Madhur. I'm sorry, I can't pose any questions, but I definitely
So
want
we've got other times in the next few weeks, so that is pretty okay.
Thank you so much for understanding. But I have to say how extremely tactile and expressive all three of your works are, and it's very interesting how being in three different areas of the part of country and the world, there's this interconnection between how you take human expressions and also in Lee Jae-jun and Madhur's work, connection with animals and other elements or other sentient beings of Earth. You've made a connection with them, and they all talk about how you want to how one needs to respect nature and Earth. I think Earth itself, that material itself, evokes that kind of emotion. Also, what Lee Jae-jun very rightly, very interestingly pointed out is how we stereotype art in today's world, or stereotype art in general, and how in the contemporary times it's kind of breaking the boundaries, and the collaboration between an artist with other domains is coming out in the public domain as something that can go as popular facade art or in other forms. So it's not something that stays as a small piece within our own premises, but which goes out in public spaces. So that seems to be the future of where art is going. It's not going to be limited to individuals. Reaching out to masses probably this way. We can move on to the next artist, and I would like to invite Yoo Jang-yoon to talk about her work. Yeah.
허정은 작가님 이제 설명 시작해 주시면
들리나요? 잘?
네,
잘
들려요. 네. 그 앞에 도입에 제가 선생님한테 드리진 않았는데 앞에 작가분들과 유사한 부분이 있어서 저도 그 일상에서 수집되는 그런 형태들을 표현하고 있는데 그것을 뭐 리얼한 형태로 보여주는 것은 아니고 그 지난번 우리가 줌 때도 말씀드렸던 것처럼 계속 이 시간이 지나면서 이미지나 기억이 변하고 있기 때문에 그것의 어떤 변형된 형태를 그냥 흙이라는 재료를 통해서 저는 보여주고 있고 그것은 어떤 가공적인 느낌을 줄 수 있는 가상의 그러한 형태를 만들고 있습니다. 그걸 먼저 말씀해 주세요.
So to start off with, I also have a commonality with other artists presented earlier, which is that I am inspired from the forms collected from my daily life, but I don't necessarily depict them realistically because as time passes, the image as well as our memory of the image changes. So I express these changes through the property of the soil, of the clay. And that's what I want to express, the transformation is expressed in my art.
예. 근데 저는 주로 어떤 토련된 흙을 적당량 잘라서 밀대로 밀어서 판을 만듭니다.
So to go into the details of how I actually create my art, first I cut an appropriate amount of earth and push it by using a rolling pin.
네, 특정한
flatten it, right?
특정한 형태나 크기는 중요하지 않고 밀어서 자연스럽게 생긴 형태의 판을 얻게 되면 거기에 첫 번째 제가 상상하고 있는 이미지를 그리고 나머지 부분을 가지고 그 다음 이미지를 또 연상시켜서 작업하는 방식을 사용하고 있습니다.
So I work from a plate or a panel of earth that doesn't really have a specific shape or size, but just a natural generic shape of a plate. And then once I have that plate, I cut out my first image, and then I look at the shape of the remaining clay plate, and then proceed with the work in a way that reminds me or that is associated with the next image.
미리 정해놓은 아이디어 스케치를 가지고 그것을 수행하는 방법으로 제작하는 게 아니라 처음 이미지를 매개로 해서 거기서부터 변형시키고 우연적인 조건을 필연적인 요소로 받아들여서 저의 감성을 연결고리로 유지해가면서 제작을 하고 있습니다.
So it's not produced by performing according to a predetermined sketch, but by copying or transforming the first image through the medium and taking these accidental conditions into a part of the and incorporate those into the part of the process, I maintain the connection with my own sensibility.
저는 저희 작업에서는 사용되는 점토는 사실 크기가 크지 않기 때문에 어떤 종류도 사용할 수 있지만 주로 형태의 유연함이나 그리고 색감 그리고 도예 작업이 가질 수 있는 가장 핵심적이고 독보적인 유화기 느낌, 깊이감을 잘 표현할 수 있는 점토로 저는 백자토를 주로 사용하고 있고요.
So the clay that I use in my work is not large in shape, so I can use any kind of clay. But in my work, I use mostly white clay that can express the flexibility of each piece, as well as the shallow texture, and also most importantly, the unique glaze of pottery.
우선 만들어낸 작은 하나의 피스는 적당한 건조 시간을 두고 입체감 있게 깎아주고 필요한 부분은 양각, 음각, 다양한 질감 표현을 하게 됩니다.
So first of all, the small piece created is precisely and also three-dimensionally carved with an appropriate drying time, and the necessary parts are embossed and engraved to express various textures.
사실 저의 작업은 하나하나의 피스가 완성도를 높이는데 그렇게 주력하지 않는 편인데 이 하나의 각자의 개별적인 피스보다 마지막 단계에서 만들어지는 그림이 중요하기 때문에 그것의 정밀한 표현보다는 문자를 열거하듯이 많은 이미지를 만들어내는 것을 중점을 두고 있습니다.
In fact, since the main painting or the main shape is formed in the very last stage, I don't really focus on improving the completeness of each individual piece. The more important thing is to focus on, first of all, to create as many units or as many pieces as possible, just like a list of alphabet or letters.
유약의 경우는 주로 백자토를 사용하기 때문에 특별한 건 없고 그냥 색감이 잘 표현될 수 있는 여러 가지 세균들을 사용하고 있고요.
So the glaze uses a variety of colors that can be well expressed in white porcelain and mainly oxidized. The tools 먼저 계속하세요.
네. 그리고 도구는 사실 작업하는 사람들은 자기 손에 잘 익은 어떤 것들을 찾게 되는데 저는 주로 그냥 우리가 흔히 쓰는 문구용 칼이나 그리고 수출용 메스 같은 그런 스테인리스 재질의 칼을 쓰는데 이것을 사용하게 되면 흙에 잘 달라붙지 않고 그리고 제 경험적으로는 좀 일정의 탄성이 있어서 조각하거나 모양을 잘라내는데 사용하기가 편리해서 주로 저는 그 도구들을 택해서 쓰고 있습니다.
So each artist kind of has their own preferred tool. There are many professional tools that one can use, but in my case, I find that the stationary knife or surgical mesh or scalpels are good because particularly the soil doesn't stick well, and it also has a little elasticity, so it plays a good role in my work. I find that this type of tool is best tamed and used by me.
지금 보고 화면에 있는 사진 같은 경우 유리판 위에 붙인 설치 작업인데요. 이런 것들을 저는 주로 실리콘을 이용해서 접착하거나 그리고 다른 재료 위에 접착을 시킬 때는 원하는 배열로 잘 배열한 다음에 에폭시 같은 것들로 고정하는 방식을 쓰고 있습니다.
So when installing, I glue with silicone or fix the surface using epoxy after arrangement.
개인적으로 전통적인 도자의 과정이나 형식에 충실한 쪽의 작업이 아니고 작가 개인의 이상향을 좀 개념적으로 표현해주고 싶은 그런 방법의 작업을 하고 있고요.
So personally, I don't focus on the traditional pottery process or format, but on the conceptual part of expressing my own individual utopia or ideals.
그리고 아까 이제 보통 만들 때 시간이 얼마나 소요되냐는 질문들도 하셨는데, 사실 저는 원래 목적한 것을 먼저 정해놓고 그대로 따라가는 작업 방식이 아니기 때문에 뭐 몇 시간이나 며칠이 걸린다 이런 대답보다는 계속 작업을 진행하는 과정에서 얻어지는 수확, 농사를 해서 얻어들이는 것 같이 그런 수확을 많이 가지고 있다가 그걸 다시 재배열해서 완성시키는 작업을 하고 있습니다.
So previously there were some questions regarding the amount of time that it takes for me to complete each work, but I cannot generalize because my work is like farming. So it's like my individual pieces are like produce from harvests. So then once I have these products, I rearrange them and organize them into arrays, which result in these work. So I cannot generalize the duration that it takes for me to complete a work.
네, 그 질문 중에 어떤 것이 저의 예술 작업에 어떤 영향을 미치냐 하는 그런 항목이 있었는데, 앞서 말한 대로 저는 모든 작업의 내용이나 저의 집중을 저 자신의 그런 감성적인 부분에 초점을 맞춰서 진행하고 있습니다.
There was a question that asked what affects my art. As mentioned earlier, I focus on my inner sensibility as an artist.
특별한 사회적인 어떤 이슈나 공적인 메시지는 아니지만 현실의 삶을 사는 인간과 작가로서의 삶이 괴리되지 않게 간극이 없이 일치할 수 있도록 노력하는 것이 저의 작업의 원동력입니다.
So I don't have a special societal message or a public message to convey, but since I live a genuine and real life, I try to match my life as an artist and my life as a human being without a gap or irreality in between. So this is my driving force.
무대에 오르는 배우처럼 무대 위에서와 뒤의 삶이 구분되어 있는 것이 아니라 저는 저에게 주어진 모든 시간과 노동력을 온전히 삶과 작업에 같이 희석되고 같이 할 수 있도록 하고 싶었고 그런 태도가 작업을 진행하는 제작 방식이나 작품의 소재로 등장하게 된 것입니다.
So unlike an actor or an actress that has a different persona on and off stage, I wanted to make sure that my art actually aligns with my life. So then this attitude is also connected to how I use the image of a house and a space that can be used and transformed by anybody.
네, 이상입니다.
That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yoo Jang-hyun. Can I invite Dipali, please? Can we go to the next?
Okay. Can you hear me, Swagata?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Clearly. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, so these sculptures, mostly I make some imaginative and intuitively modeled, fantasized devices. And I take cues from recurring subjects, man-made, man-held machineries, like a silencer of some vehicle or parts of locomotive or whatever is around me, whatever I witness around me. I take those things, but they are non-representational. They are not direct representations of the image, but just very suggestive and metaphoric of some concepts. But overall, I think what I want to share with you all is that to me, the expressive power of the pictorial composition is most important. And next comes technique. So whatever I make, the utmost importance I give to the form. And then to complement my form, I keep exploring various ceramic materials and start my exploration of researching materials. So earlier in my works, I used to give much focus on just the form, not the material. But now, since last, I think 2014 or 15, I started focusing and acknowledging the importance of materials and techniques. And I realized how a better understanding of them can complement my form to give a holistic fulfillment. So like the raw reality of an imagery is very pure. But as a ceramic artist, I have to take it out through my technical rendition. So that is my conflict all the time. And that's how I keep exploring from series to series. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Dipali. Thank you. And we'll move on now to our next group of artists. I think it's Kang. Kang is next, I think. If you will just show us the slides, please, Vail. Yeah, it's Kang. And Kang will blend our presentation because I don't think Thomas is here with us. But we can quickly go through his slides. So over to you, Kang.
안녕하세요. 강경현입니다. 들리세요?
네, 잘 들려요.
네.
Hi, my name is 강경현.
제 작업은 사람과 사람의 관계에 대한 질문에서부터 시작되었습니다. 처음에는 나를 중심으로 하여 개인들 사이의 관계성에 주목하였습니다만 점차 나를 둘러싸고 있는 사회의 구조적인 모습에 관심을 두게 되었습니다.
So my work started from the relationship between people. I first started from my own, my inner aspects, but then it soon evolved into societal as well as interpersonal relationships.
저는 여성의 이미지와 제 작업의 이야기를 담을 수 있는 대상을 찾아 작품의 시각적인 구성을 시도합니다.
I try to compose the visual structure of my work based on the notion of femininity.
가장 먼저 이야기를 구상하고 내용을 효과적으로 전달할 수 있는 대상을 찾습니다. 그리고 함축적인 형태를 표현하기 위해 고민합니다. 저는 관객들이 저의 작업을 입체물로서보다는 하나의 장면으로 인식하고 각자의 경험을 투영하여 다양한 해석을 해주기를 바라고 있습니다.
So first of all, I would rather want my audience to perceive of my work not as a distinct piece, but as a scene. And I want my audience to imbue the work with their own experiences and diverse interpretations.
예컨대 이번에 전시하고 있는 블루 우먼의 경우 유토피아에서 깊이 사색하는 인물의 이미지를 표현하기 위해 여성 좌상을 단순한 선으로 처리하여 명상하듯 앉아있는 모습으로 표현하였습니다. 제가 제시하는 이러한 시각적 구성을 매개로 유토피아, 내면의 울림 등의 구체성이 더해지기를 기대합니다.
So, for instance, my work titled "The Blue Woman" depicts a woman who is deeply contemplating in utopia. So these women who are meditating are drawn on a straight line, and I wanted to convey their inner voice.
제가 세라믹 작업에서 주로 사용하는 제작 방법은 핸드빌딩과 부조기법이지만 오늘은 핸드빌딩을 중심으로 이야기하겠습니다.
So the main methods that I use in ceramic is hand building and also structure, but I'll mainly talk about the former.
저는 점토로 형태를 제작할 때 코일링의 경우처럼 유닛의 일정한 크기와 모양이 유지되는 방식을 사용하지 않습니다. 제가 점토를 쌓아가는 방식은 제작하고자 하는 형태의 부피와 균형을 고려하면서 유닛의 양과 크기, 형태를 조절하며 진행하는 것입니다.
방금 거 다시 한 번만 말씀해 주실 수 있으세요?
네, 저는 점토로 형태를 제작할 때 코일링의 경우처럼 유닛의 일정한 크기와 모양이 유지되는 방식을 사용하지 않습니다. 제가 점토를 쌓아가는 방식은
끊어서 하세요.
끊어서?
So when I formulate the shape of the clay, it's not like the coiling technique where the shape and the size of the clay is maintained.
그 다음 거 말씀드릴까요?
네.
제가 점토를 쌓아가는 방식은 제작하고자 하는 형태의 부피와 균형을 고려하면서 유닛의 양과 크기, 형태를 조절하며 진행하는 것입니다.
So the way I accumulate the formation of the clays, I consider the volume and the size of the unit, and then I proceed with my work.
보통 핸드빌딩 기법을 사용하는 경우 점토를 쌓아가는 과정에서 구체적인 형태가 드러납니다. 그러나 저의 경우에는 점토를 쌓으면서 대략적인 구조와 부피를 만든 후 나무 도구로 표면에 스케치를 해 나가면서 점토 벽을 안과 밖으로 누르거나 밀어내는 방식으로 구체적인 형태를 완성해 갑니다.
방금 것도 한 번만 더 말씀해 주세요.
끊어서
너무 길게
갈게요.
갑니다. 네.
네, 끊어서 갈게요. 보통 핸드빌딩 기법을 사용하는 경우 점토를 쌓아가는 과정에서 구체적인 형태가 드러납니다.
So usually in the technique of hand building, the specific shape is revealed during the process of accumulating the clay.
그러나 저의 경우에는 점토를 쌓으면서 대략적인 구조와 부피를 만든 후 나무 도구로 표면에 스케치를 해 나가면서 점토 벽을 안과 밖으로 누르거나 밀어내는 방식으로 구체적인 형태를 완성해 갑니다.
However, in my case, as I accumulate the clay, I think of the shape and volume of the work, and then sketches are made by using wooden utensils onto the surface, and then both external and internal pressure is applied by using clay tools.
마치 종이 위에 스케치를 해 나가며 이미지를 구체화하는 것과 같은 느낌으로 작업을 하고 있는데 이 방식을 통해 바닥에서부터 한 단씩 형태를 만들어가는 핸드빌딩 기법에서 발생할 수 있는 형태의 부자연스러움을 일정 부분 해소할 수 있었습니다.
Thus, the certain aspect of unnaturalness that usually results from hand building technique can be removed. Because I first, it's like drawing a sketch upon a paper and then visualizing and then realizing into an image.
조형을 전체적으로 파악하기 쉽게 해주기 때문에 인체를 포함한 구상 형태의 비율을 조율하고 수정하기 편한 방식이라고 생각하고 있습니다.
I believe this is an easier way to accommodate the shape involving the human body, as well as have a grasp of the overall sculptural form.
가마의 굽는 과정은 보통 900도 초벌 후 1250도에서 재벌 소성을 하는데
So in regards to the kilning process, after initial firing at 900 degrees Celsius and 1250 degrees Celsius 채벌,
표현에 따라 900도 초벌, 1250 재벌 소성 후 1000도에서 3벌을 진행하기도 합니다.
So after the initial 900 degrees Celsius and then secondary 1250 degrees Celsius, occasionally I also applied a final process of 1000 degrees Celsius.
소성 방식은 산화 소성입니다.
The firing method is oxidation.
최근에 집중하고 있는 채색 방법은 산화물을 사용해 점토의 물성과 표현의 디테일을 살린 작품의 표면에 안료와 유약, 화장토, 미디엄을 배합한 재료를 반복해서 올려 형태에 밀착된 효과를 표현하는 것입니다.
The coloring method that I have been focusing on recently is to repeatedly put pigments, glazed toilet paper, and medium, not toilet paper, but clay and medium on the surface of a work that uses oxides to preserve the properties and expressions of clay.
전시 공간을 해석한 후 작품 콘셉트과 연계시켜 작업을 완성해가는 부분도 제 작업에서는 중요한 과정에 속하는데 현재는 전시 공간의 구성에 따라 연출되는 시각적 이미지가 주제의 확장성을 견인한다는 점에 집중하며 작품 제작에 임하고 있습니다.
After interpreting the site or the exhibition space, the part of completing the work in connection with the concept of the work is also, I believe, an important process in my work. I'm currently working on the production, focusing on the fact that the visual image produced according to the composition of the exhibition space drives the subject.
질문의 항목 중에서 제가 대답할 수 있는 부분을 골라서 말씀을 드리고 싶은데, 그러니까 제가 선택한 것은 세라믹 유리 소재 작업을 선택할 때 처음부터 했는지 아니면 여러 가지 재료를 사용해볼 선호도를 깨달았는지에 대한 질문에 대한 답을 드리겠습니다.
So out of the list of questions that I have received, I have chosen the following question about whether I chose to work with ceramic or glass from the beginning or if I realized my preference after using several materials.
저는 처음부터 도자를 소재로 작업을 시작했는데 전통적인 공예의 개념 안에서 구현되는 작품의 형식을 따르지 않고 표현 매체로서 점토, 채색 재료, 소성 과정이 지닌 가능성에 주목하며 작업을 해왔습니다.
I started working on ceramics from the beginning, paying attention to the possibilities of clay, coloring materials, and the firing processes as an expression medium without following the form of works implemented within the framework of traditional crafts.
세라믹 작업의 기본 재료인 점토는 저희 작업 안에서 직관적인 표현을 가능하게 해주는 유연성을 지닌 소재입니다.
Clay, which is the basic material of ceramic work, is a flexible material that enables intuitive expression in my work.
오랜 기간 세라믹을 소재로 작업하면서 느끼는 점은 도자예술의 전통적인 표현 방식을 유지하면서 작업하려는 것이 아니라면 좀 더 시각적 표현을 확장하기 위한 다양한 재료에 관심을 기울이는 것이 좋다고 생각합니다.
What I felt while working on ceramics for a long time is that unless you're trying to maintain the traditional expression or form of ceramic art, I think it's better to pay attention to various materials to expand visual expression.
사용 재료에 매몰되어 표현에 제약이 생길 수 있는 경우를 차단할 수 있기 때문입니다.
This is because it can block cases where expression may be restricted due to being buried in used materials.
세라믹을 주 재료로 사용하는 저에게 타 재료는 세라믹 작업이 완결될 수 있게 하는 보완제 역할을 하기도 하고
For me, who uses ceramic as the main material, other materials serve as complementary materials to complete my work.
때로는 전시 콘셉트를 보강해주는 제2의 표현 재료로 기능합니다.
And also sometimes serve as second expressive materials that reinforce the exhibition concept.
이러한 경험이 저에게 주었던 가장 중요한 부분은 저희 작업에서 세라믹이 차지하는 위치와 표현의 가능성, 재료의 강점 등을 명료하게 찾아가게 되었다는 것입니다.
So the most important part of this experience was that I was able to clearly find the location of ceramics or the position of ceramics in my work, also the possibility of expression, as well as the strength of material.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you, the artists, for such a rich sharing of detail and concept and, you know, your entire motivations, what inspires you, etc. It's really fantastic here. We'll just go through the last artist, Thomas Wheatvale, if you'll just show his film, please. If there are any other questions that the audience has, you're free to ask them now. Otherwise, I think I also need to thank the audience for being with us for this long marathon session. But thank you all so much for that. Swagata, do you have any?
I'm just awed by the wide variety of expressions, inspirations, methods in which people have processed their ideas to final artworks. And I don't know about others, but it has at least opened my horizon or my boundaries of imagination and making, and the possibilities that it brings to forth. Considering, I think from a design perspective, the way I see this expanding in terms of a hand-in-hand collaborative medium, art with design, I see immense possibilities. It's lovely how Yu Jung-yoon and Dipali and Kang Kyun have expressed their ideas through material, while Yu Jung-yoon's work seems like a boundaryless, limitless art form, because it brings that warmth and coziness of those everyday imagery that one experiences and feels at home with, and it kind of looks like a mural that can expand in all directions. Dipali's work is deeply metaphorical, and while it looks like nothing that you've seen around, it strikes a deep chord somewhere inside you, because it evokes emotions. And Kang Kyun-yoon's work it shows how much she loves the material, and that it kind of shows up in her expression of work. It shows it's kind of like she said that it represents utopia. The artwork shows that celebration of happiness and life through these fantastical images that kind of come together as a storybook, so it looks like a narrative. You're going through a story, not an art piece. So it's absolutely amazing for me, at least.
Thank you. Mulim, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, no, this is okay. Yeah.
All right, so we'll close now. Thank you all, audience, artists, and everyone who was here. Thanks again to lnKo to allow us to, give us this privilege and honor. I would like to ask all the artists to please, all the audience, please go to our exhibition, look at the landing page, read the artist statements. We have another talk on the 12th of February, which will be at Shanti Niketan. So you're most welcome to join there if you have any other questions also, because it's also for a student audience. So thank you all very much. Good night, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine, Mulim, and all the artists, Swagata, and all the students at NIT.
Rati, there you are. Thank you,
Yeah,
Rati.
I just want to say that we have to say a big, big thank you to the two curators. It's just splendid to see how the Indian and Korean artists sort of talk to each other and their art forms blend so well. So although it was a very long session, I think it was a very informative session, and it gave us so much of insight, both in terms of technique and concept. So thank you very much, Christine, Mulim, and it's wonderful for us to be able to share your work with institutes of excellence, starting with NID and then Shanti Niketan and Hongik University and Ewha down the line. So anyway, lots of food for thought, and hopefully we will over the weekend mull over all of this and see you back again on the 12th, next Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Happy New Year.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Happy New Year.